Okay. So welcome to the meeting. Welcome to the Manhattan CB4 Transportation Committee meeting of May, which continues to be on digital by a resolution of the city, as well as the vote of CB4, which has decided to go online in certain fashion. And we have a very long agenda today with a topic where there are 60 attendees already to speak. So I appreciate your help to keep it quick. My co-chair, Dale, has decided to go gallivanting to Finland and some, countries where it's cold. So anyway, he's missing in action, let's put it this way. And so I'll be all by myself with the members of the committee, and that's very good. I have a question before we start. Before we start, we have a change in the agenda. The item, which is called proposed legislation on ghost plates, has been postponed. So if anybody is here for that item, you can disconnect and go do something else, because we will not discuss that. We'll probably discuss it next month. And finally, Janine, do we have someone from the DOT joining us yet? We should have someone. Jackie Lazaro is supposed to join us.
Yeah, she is. I'm gonna transfer her over to.
Yeah, why don't you transfer her? And Janine Pretanta Yusuf is our MCB4 planner, and she's helping us, and nothing can happen without her. So that's where we are. So our first, Jackie, welcome to our meeting. And here is our first topic, which is the Port Authority to present on Lincoln Tunnel overheight detection replacement. And I'm turning it to Jerry Lindemeyer. Jerry, welcome. We have not seen you in a while.
Yes, thank you, Christine. It's a pleasure to see you. It's a pleasure to say hello and good evening to everyone. Thank you for the privilege of your time to allow us to present to you the project for the replacement of the overheight detection system at the Galvin Plaza. As the title says, the overheight detection system is a safety system used at all the portals of the Lincoln Tunnel and used to prevent overheight trucks from vehicles from getting into the tunnel and damaging it. The system at Galvin Plaza is old. While it's still operating, it is in its age. It has become more and more susceptible to false alarms, and with those false alarms comes audio alarms. So under this project, the new system will utilize modern multi-beam devices that will reduce the false alarms, and in particular the audio alarms, and will make it a overall more efficient and system that's less intrusive in the community. Just one other item before I send it over to Vassal, our project manager. One of the things that we did looking at this project before going out, we wanted to see exactly how we could minimize the impact on the community, and in particular, the impact of the noise from the project. So honestly, the initial hours of work were all midnights. But what we did is we took a step back and we used some of the tactics, some of the principles that we successfully used under AET, the all electronic tolls, where with project management, GoCore, Lincoln Tunnel Facility, and bus terminal, we looked at the areas, and we identified sections that we could change or move some of the lanes around by reconing it, and thereby giving giving the contractor some dedicated areas that he could work on during the daytime. I think we were successful in that in a few locations under this. So with that, I'd like to introduce Vasil Krapchek, the project manager for this project, and he'll take you through the presentation. Once again, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Jerry.
Good afternoon, good evening, and thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jerry, for the introduction. Can everybody see my screen?
Yeah.
Excellent. So my name is Vasil Krapchek, and I'm a senior project manager for the TD&T, and I'm here to talk about the installation of the Overheight. And Jerry did an excellent job of describing the project. So as Jerry said, the Overheight provides for the we are replacing the existing Overheight detection system at Galvin Plaza with the new state-of-the-art detection system to minimize the false alarms and the sirens that disturb the neighborhood, and to reduce the backups from the Overheight vehicles entering the plaza and becoming wedged in the tunnel. This will be accomplished by installing the early detection system with no alarms on the 40th Street, 39th Street underpass, and Galvin Avenue. The early detection will notify PAPD and will turn on the new messaging signs, like the ones you see on the top graphic, to warn the Overheight vehicles not to turn into the plaza. And we are updating the existing Overheight detection system within the plaza to detect the number and to reduce the number of false alarms by putting the new, more reliable equipment in there. So the Overheight project is located between 10th Avenue and 11th Avenue, and between 39th and 41st Street. The majority of the construction will be on the 40th Street between 11th Avenue and Galvin Avenue, and we'll elaborate a little more details on the following slides on that work. And the work will also be taking place on the 39th Street underpass, Galvin Avenue, and Galvin Plaza itself. This is the preliminary schedule of construction. The contractor is planning to start work in June and expecting to complete most of the work by September of 2023. He will continue to work inside the Amtrak tunnel, as well as pull cables and perform equipment terminations. And this will be followed by field testing and programming of the system. And the project is scheduled to be completed by October of 2024. So as Jerry pointed out earlier, we have looked carefully at this project, and we pulled out as much of the daytime work as we could. So at the south side of the 40th Street, depicted under number 1, the conduits will be installed on the existing sidewalk to run power and communications to the new messaging sign. The early detection equipment will be installed on the existing sign structure at the corner of 11th Avenue and 40th Street, using the existing conduits already in place. This work will be performed during the regular daytime hours, and this work will be expected to last approximately 3 weeks and will start sometime in June. At the area number 2 on the east side of Galvin Plaza, the contractor will install a new metal pole with Overheight equipment. This work will require sidewalk work to install the conduits and foundations for the new pole. This work will take approximately 2 weeks and will happen sometime in July. In the area marked number 3, the contractor will install conduits in the roadway with minimal impact to traffic for the Overheight equipment that will be attached to the existing structure. This work will take approximately 3 weeks and will happen sometime in August. The installation of the conduits on the west side of Galvin Plaza, marked number 1, will be done at night and coordinated with the closures of the North Tube. The lane closures required for this area are shown in the green shading. At the north side of the 40th Street, area number 2, installation of new conduits below the sidewalk will be required. The early detection system will be installed on a new steel pole approximately 40 feet from 11th Avenue. Further east on the 40th Street, a new steel pole with the overheight detection equipment, as well as a messaging sign, will be installed. This will be done during the nighttime after work on the south side is complete. When this work is being constructed, the blue shaded area will need to be closed at night and traffic will be directed to the center lane of the 40th Street. The sidewalk will be permanently closed for the 3-week duration of the work. The pedestrian detour will be in place, directing people to the west side of the 11th Avenue and to the sidewalk or the 41st Street if they need to go east. We are using the success of noise mitigation that was implemented during the automated electronic tolling, the AET, as the basis for this contract. The contractor has hired the noise mitigation specialist to develop a noise mitigation plan that meets and exceeds the local requirements and will implement the listed mitigations that may include but are not limited to the ones shown on this list. The noise work will be monitored by the contractor and verified by construction management. Any noise complaints should be phoned into our noise 24-hour hotline or construction management division are the numbers shown on the slide. And thank you for your attention.
Yeah, can you take it down?
Yes.
And then you'll give a copy to Janine, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I sent one in already.
Sorry, how do I?
So let me see, can you take that right?
Thank you.
Who has any questions of the committee? I don't see any questions. So I have one or two questions. First of all, you're showing new beams to detect. Are those beams eventually, I mean, are they there all the time and are they
Yes.
visible? And they are not visible?
Correct, they're not visible.
Okay, so there is no risk that we have projecting some red beam in an apartment, right?
No.
And make a cat crazy. Because that happened at the... Okay, so that's good. That's good news. So at night, the work, thank you for all the work you have done to reduce the night work. But so it would be summarize how many days at night you're going to work and until what hour?
Right. So currently our work hours are from 11 p.m. to 5 a.m. on the nights that we don't have to close the Lincoln Tunnel.
Right.
And if we have to coordinate with the Lincoln Tunnel closures, then it's from, Jerry, correct me if I'm wrong, it's going to be from 1 a.m. to 5. You're on mute, Jerry.
You're on mute, Jerry.
Correct. We have a 2-hour delay on Friday night into Saturday to accommodate the additional traffic from the Holland, and we have a 1-hour delay on Sunday night into Monday for that same reason.
What are the delay? The delays are Saturday and Friday and Saturday. Is that what it is?
We have, yes, it's as part of the mitigation from 2 hours before we delay the Friday night into Saturday closure from what had been 11 to 1 a.m. Prior to that 2 a.m. closure, we ensure that we have 4 lanes going westbound to to eliminate any of the queue that is there.
Right.
And then
you may want to think about Thursday. I mean, the Thursday are just bad, but that's a side comment. So you would be doing that how many days, those 11 to 5?
So there are different areas where we're going to be doing different pieces of work, but majority of the night work that I showed was on the 40th Street, and that's 3 weeks of no work.
So the whole project, 3 weeks at night. That's what you're saying?
No. There will be more closures at different locations, but the ones that will impact the traffic the most will be on the 40th Street.
No, but forget about the traffic. I'm asking about the noise. So they
how much she's asking how many nights?
How many nights total are you going to work at night?
Night, it's going to be. I'm gonna have to get back to you because right now I can say approximately it's gonna be 3 weeks plus 1 week.
I think it's 4 weeks, right?
It's 4 weeks of night work where we're gonna be making. Potentially making noise. There will be other night closures where we're doing quiet work, such as pulling cables or attaching equipment to existing structures.
Got it.
And Christine, that's scheduled for July and August.
Yeah. Okay. And then so let me understand, you're going to redo this whole area when you redo the terminal, right? So all this work will be removed when you redo the ramps, etc.
No, this overheight detection will stay. So it was designed with the ramp structure in mind, where we don't have to take this down when the.
Good. All right, Tina.
Yeah, just to follow up on the noise, you had said that there was a contact number that one could use to get in touch with you. How are you going to publicize that contact number? Are you going to put notices up, or are you just going to simply rely on 411 or the like?
Well, we can. Janine has this presentation, and then what we did with other projects, I sent a week ahead of work that was going to come on, and then at the bottom of that, there would always be. We would include the hotline. And so I always send that to the community board for some of the bids, some other stakeholders, and I'll send it out weekly. Usually goes out probably like a Thursday, so it can be published if there's any impacts.
Yeah, there are 2 buildings that are going to be mostly impacted, right? One is on 11th Avenue and 40th, right?
Yeah, and I'll work with Jesse and Janine to get those contacts, and I'll include the building managers on that.
That would be good. And then there is the Covenant House, which is right in the middle of that.
Yeah, and I'll include them as well.
So that would be good if you do that. Anybody else has a question? Good.
Okay. I'm sorry, there's someone in the public. I'm going to bring him over. Michael.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah.
No problem.
Always. Oh, Michael. Michael is exactly in that building I was talking about. Hey, Michael, go ahead.
Hello?
We can't, go ahead, yes.
So really quick, I do live in the vicinity. Is this, thank you for the quick presentation. I'll be quick with my question. Is this project solely for the height restriction of the trucks, or is there an opportunity to also address the red light and speeding violations that we see on a daily basis in the area? I'm a pedestrian in the area, I'm a resident in the area, and that's a huge concern for me. Thank you.
Unfortunately, this is only for overheight detection for the tunnel.
Yeah, Michael, yeah, this is for the vehicles using the Lincoln Tunnel. I think you're referring to the city streets, which would come under DOT.
Right.
Okay, so let me summarize. We understand that it's going to be about 4 weeks of overnight work, and you are going to try to minimize that. and that you're going to notify the buildings around
Yeah.
as much as possible, as well as the community board with a phone number for contact.
Yeah, and we'll give a preview of the either 2 week ahead or a week
Right.
ahead
And-
of work.
Which is very good. Okay, so could I have a motion here to support this project?
So moved.
Second,
I second.
Okay, all in favor? Anybody
Aye.
opposed? Present, non-eligible? That's good. Thank you so much.
Thank you all very much. Have a good night.
Have a good night.
And we still need this tree guard.
Hi. Work it out.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thanks.
Right.
Okay, the next item is a request for a neighborhood loading zone in front of the Chain Theater at 312 West 36th Street, which is pretty close to 8th Avenue. Who is here to present the request quickly?
Hello, I am.
Hi, Christina. How are you?
Hello, I am very well, thank you. I also have on our managing director, Rick Hamilton, here in case I have any tech issues with our PowerPoint. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much to the board for this opportunity to present. I'm going to go ahead and do a quick slideshow and then just hit some important points for us. So if I may. Okay. I think I will need some help in sharing our PowerPoint here.
Janine, are they allowed to share?
Yeah, they have sharing capabilities.
Okay, so I guess there's a little arrow at the bottom of your screen, which is share screen, no?
Yeah, it's a
Here
green
we
button.
go. All right. Thank you so much, all.
Here you go.
Okay, here we go. So we are the Chain Theater. We're a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, and this loading zone would not just benefit our organization, but the other not-for-profit theater in our building known as the Tank Theater. There's also the ACE Institute of Technology, and then the National Manicuring School as well. And there's a couple businesses next door too that would also benefit to having this loading zone. Here's a little video about us and some of our impact in the community.
Christina, your sound is not on.
There is supposed to be sound on this video. It's just some basic music, clapping to the audience, and it's just about over, so I'll let it play.
Okay.
All right, so sorry about that for the sound issue. I'm hoping it doesn't have to do with the fact that my headphones were in, but thank you for watching that. So we have some shots here in front of our building of where we would like to have our loading zone. It's been recommended to us to have frontage in front of the building of 40 to 50 feet. You can see on the sign right to your right there that the current signage is it's just commercial vehicles only, Monday through Friday, 6 a.m. to 7, and then Tuesday, Thursday, 2 p.m. to 6 a.m. So I will go ahead and take this off and stop sharing my screen. So our greatest concern here is we're really looking at safety for not just the artists and who are working at our space, but also the patrons as well. We've been finding that we've been having a lot of difficulty with some of our older patrons and those who need a little bit more access to the street, those with wheelchairs, walkers, scooters. They're having a really difficult time navigating getting into our building from their access ride or what other transportation they have. They can't fit in between the cars that are currently parked outside, and having them go all the way down to the corner of the street on either end to get a taxi or Uber causes even more problems. So that's something we'd really like to eliminate. Our theaters are all ADA accessible, and so we really want to make sure that we are not limiting anyone from coming to our space and further making the front of our building ADA accessible as well. In addition, we also have quite a few load-ins that happen. We have 4 theaters and 4 rehearsal studios, and that means that we have quite a bit of activity, set pieces, furniture, lumber coming in and out of this building. And what we find is that when this happens is that we have no opportunity other than to just double park in front of our building, which causes further congestion on the street. So this loading zone would help eliminate that. And it also would make it much safer for those who are unloading. I can personally testify that I have had many close calls while unloading furniture and wood with vehicles and people who are just not paying attention and whizzing by. As you guys know, we're between 8th and 9th Avenue, so there is a lot of traffic happening there and a lot of motorists who just aren't paying attention. So I would really like to eliminate that, as a lot of our artists tend to be younger as well and maybe not as experienced. So I think those are the main points here that we have for our loading zone. And I just want to thank everybody again. As you know, this has been a very difficult couple years as we've been recovering in this block, in this neighborhood in particular, the Garment District and Barbara Blair and Inga and everyone from Community Board 4 has been fantastic, along with Erik Bottcher's office. So thank you so much for helping us and continuing to support us as we make the experience here in the neighborhood even more enhanced for everyone, to make it for everyone to be accessible and to come here and enjoy what we do.
Thank you, Christina. Anybody has any question? What are the questions? Charles. Charlie.
I just want to say this sounds like a great idea. Frankly, I think there should be a neighborhood loading zone in front of every building in all of New York City. So certainly think this wonderful theater should have a neighborhood loading zone. The only thing I wanted to bring up is that I believe it's 36th Street. It's close to the Midtown South precinct. I know that there is placard parking and police personal vehicle parking all over that block. And I wonder what happens when we put a neighborhood loading zone and then a police officer from Long Island decides to park in it every day. I wonder if there's anything we can do to be proactive about that.
Nice question. I also understand that there is BRC has about 35 trucks on those blocks. Anybody else?
There's 3 people in the public, Inga, Brian, and Michael. I'm bringing them over now.
Sure. So Inga, good to see you in our backyard.
I don't often join transportation, but I wanted to, first of all, Inyevchenko, I'm a member of Community Board 4, also a patron of the Chain Theater. I met them first when I was co-chair of ACES with Alan Oster. When they first started out and came to introduce themselves a few years before COVID, they have learned a lot and have probably faced every hardship a small theater could face in New York City: COVID, homelessness, crime, no parking, just you name it, they've dealt with it, and they've dealt with it and still succeeded. So I really want to support them in any way we can. They've been a great asset to the neighborhood. They put on wonderful shows. They've come to us every time they have something new or need help. They offer tickets to people. They're just a great neighbor to have, and I think we should support them in any way we can. So that's basically what I wanted to say. They need parking.
Thanks, Inga.
Okay.
Brian.
Thank you, board, and thank you, Christine. And I'm Brian Weber. I'm a public member of CB4 Land Use Committee. I'm a resident of West 36th Street and also the co-chair of the Block Association. Unfortunately, I'm not here to speak on behalf of the Block Association just because we haven't had the opportunity to meet over this request, but I'm here as a resident to support the Chain Theater's request for a loading zone. I also just want to note that I am the president of the Midtown South Precinct Community Council. The Chain Theater has a very good relationship with Midtown South. They have a phone number directly to them. They also have a phone number directly to me, and the police will not be an issue parking in their loading zone. I also just want to note that 36th Street is an access point between the Lincoln Tunnel and the Queens Midtown Tunnel, and it is heavily trafficked. So having a loading zone is imperative for a theater group that is trying to unload cube trucks full of sets and furnishings. And as Christine noted, parking has become extra stressed as of late, as a new tenant on 35th Street, BRC, parks anywhere up to 20 plus vans, minivans, and SUVs along the block, stressing the already tight parking conditions. So I defer to the board's wisdom, but I know you guys will do the right thing in recommending a loading zone for the wonderful Chain Theater. And I also just want to invite everyone on the board on behalf of Christine to attend events at the Chain. It's a wonderful space. And I hope you have a great time there. Thank you.
Yeah. Did we
Thank
have
you.
Michael, you were going to talk, or no, you don't have your hand raised. Michael Guarachi? No. Oh, yes, it does. Jackie, before I go to you, I would like to hear Michael, and then I'll come to you, okay? Michael?
Hi, I just wanted to second everybody's point. I do support this. Thank you so much, Christina, for putting the time, energy, and effort into that wonderful presentation. I agree with Charles. Loading zone should be on every block. And I would also second his question about the reliability of police. Thank you.
Okay. Jackie, your turn.
Yep, and to Charles's and Michael's question, I did want to mention that there is a new loading zone regulation that was recently adopted. It is an update to the traffic rules section 4-08, which establishes that loading zones are for loading only, and that signage would include a set time limit for vehicles to utilize the space, and vehicles that display agency authorized or single-use permits would be prohibited from using this dedicated space.
So what you are saying, I was kind of, first of all, the loading zone we require could be 24 hours a day?
So it would depend. The team would have to go out and conduct a field investigation and see, what the needs of, other parking needs in the area are. So I can't say on what.
I don't think we want to have an investigation, because otherwise it comes back not the way we want, and then it could be a 15 minutes timing or 30 minutes timing. What is the timing for the loading zone?
So for the loading zone, I believe if I'm not mistaken, I believe they asked for it to be, I think it's about an hour max.
Yeah, but we don't want that. 1 hour is too long. It doesn't work. We have already said in our neighborhood we wanted to have, 15 to 30 minutes. People come, they drop something, and they go. 1 hour is like the space is never available. But we will request what we think is necessary, and thank you for the update though with the new regulation. We appreciate that.
Yep, of course.
Okay, so I think what maybe we want to ask is, we did the same thing for B&H, is either a neighborhood loading zone or a new loading zone, which is, maximum 30 minutes in length. So people don't stay there, they just move right away. And we will put those two, and hopefully what Jackie was talking about will be covering the second one. And until what time of the night do you want that, Christina?
I would say till midnight or 11 p.m. would be really helpful. That tends to be when our loadout, we do a lot of loadouts late Sunday night. And so usually 10 to 11 o'clock would be great.
All right. So that would be the resolution. Do we have a motion for that?
Motion
I make the
to
motion.
adopt.
I second.
Okay. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed? Present, non-eligible? It passes. Okay, good. Christina, there will be a letter. The letter is going to go to the full board. The full board will vote on it, and then it will go to the DOT.
Okay. All right.
And then we have just to cross our fingers.
Okay. Thank you, Brian and Inga and Michael as well. Thank you so much, you guys. Hopefully this is all finalized. Really, really appreciate it.
Right. Very good. So the next item is relate to complaints on bicyclists on sidewalks and other, complaints. And so the way we are going to do that is that there is a group of leaders of this coalition who is going to we're going to give them 5 to 10 minutes to make a presentation. And then after that, we can ask them some question. After that, we will let anybody else who want to speak for 1 minute, and then we'll regroup and discuss the matter. And then we may have some other, Janine, do we have some other participant that we had invited?
I had invited some of the bicyclists, the deliveristas, but I'm not seeing them, but I will double check the list.
What about the platforms?
Again, I'll check the list, but I only heard back from 2 people.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. So I think Richard is going to lead the 10 minutes presentation, right?
Right.
Okay, go ahead.
So thank you very much for having us tonight. I am a member of the 4748th Street Block Association, and we formed a committee to deal with bikes on sidewalks, which changed to the Bikes on Sidewalks initiative. And that quickly grew to a coalition of block associations in CB4, especially including the Council of Block Chelsea Council of Block Associations, 49 to 54 at the West 50s, and numerous other groups, as well as individuals who are very concerned about pedestrian safety regarding bikes. And our goal is to increase pedestrian safety by reaching out and with a multifaceted approach to getting bike riders, delivery riders, e-bike riders, and anyone who's riding bikes to follow the appropriate city ordinances, especially in our case at 4748th Street, bikes off sidewalks. So the multifaceted approach is somewhat different from just saying, well, let's get the police involved. We're really looking to mobilize as many citizens as possible to participate in this campaign. For instance, one of the facets is distributing flyers to riders, delivery riders, and otherwise on nights out organized by our coalition, and by having the flyers distributed when you order deliveries, to try and get folks to follow the rules that are necessary for pedestrian safety. So that's basically who we are. I'm hoping that we can put our email in the, is there a,
No, you can't do that.
okay. At any rate, so we come to you because part of this mobilization would be getting the community board to adopt this multifaceted approach through a resolution from the Transportation Committee. And we think that this will further publicize this matter and bring more people into a coordinated effort to improve pedestrian safety. So we've asked some of the leaders in our coalition to speak about some of these different facets. And the first person who will be speaking is Dave Achelis from the West 50s Neighborhood Association.
Thank you very much. My name is David Achelis, president of the West 50s Neighborhood Association. We have a membership of around 600 people. And the number one concern of the quality of life for most of the membership is the toxic bike situation that has been created by the influx of e-bikes and messengers and the situation during COVID over the last few years. There are some simple ways. Richard wanted me to talk about advertising, which to me relates to the education of the problem. The city has spent hundreds of $millions on infrastructure for bikes and the bike situation, but they've spent not one penny on education and enforcement. And enforcement's another problem entirely, but education is something that we as a community group can do almost immediately in the city, can start doing almost immediately. Now, I don't know if you've noticed in the kiosks around town recently, there's been a sign saying, attention, all wheeled vehicles. It is against the law to ride on the sidewalks. It is against the law to ride against traffic. Pedestrians always have the right of way. I started that first kiosk with our neighborhood association. We got Community Board 5, of which I'm also a member, to take over and start putting that poster up. I believe you, Community Board 4 have done it as well, and Community Board 7. But this is not really the community board's job to do. It should be the city's job to spread word and educate people about what the laws are concerning bicycles. Some easy, cheap ways to do this. City Bike, that is the partner, the city's partnership in the bike rental situation. On every one of their kiosks, they can post the laws right there, especially those three primary points we want the public to understand. They can put that on every one of their rental stations instead of advertising for sunglasses, which is what they have now. They have the money to do this. There is no reason why. When I asked them about it, they told me, oh, it's in the basket. It says, do not ride on sidewalks, the little basket in the front of the bicycles. The first thing somebody does when they rent a bike is put their own bag in the basket. People wouldn't be breaking the laws if they knew, and if that little posting in the basket was effective. So we can get City Bike to start educating their clientele, and obviously they haven't been doing it, because as we know, City Bike riders are some of the worst bicyclists in the city. We can also get the Department of Transportation to take a more active role in education. They have not done this. They can be taking over doing public service announcements in the subways, postering in the subways, kiosks everywhere. we need to get the public educated, not just the bicyclists, but the pedestrians themselves, so they know what the rules are, so they feel more secure walking down the sidewalks. I don't want to take any more time. I'd be happy to answer any questions. I've been working on this bike situation for over 14 years now, and this is just one aspect of it. I know the other members will talk about other pieces of it, but thank you so much for your time. I appreciate your having me on this forum. That's it.
Sally Greenspan, president of the Chelsea Council Block Associations.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having us. Yes, Sally Greenspan, president of CCBA. CCBA is part of the Bicycle Off Sidewalks initiative. Easy decision. Everybody on this call, everybody on this Zoom is a potential victim of a bike riding in the wrong way or on the sidewalk. I think we all know that, and I think the secret sauce for controlling illegal cycling is enforcement. The question is how to enforce. Functioning civil society requires the goodwill of its citizens to abide by the law. When they don't abide by the law, we're punished. You can imagine if cars were just driving any speed they wanted to, going in any direction they wanted to, there's enforcement for that. We need enforcement for bicycles too. They're killing us, they're maiming us, and they're scaring us. Without enforcement, we are spinning our wheels. We can only accomplish so much with advertising and signs and flyers. It's up to our elected officials and our law enforcement agencies to think out of the box and figure it out. Police in uniform on street corners will not be effective because cyclists will simply avoid sidewalks with visible police officers. I have been told by both the 10th and 13th precincts that enforcement with undercover agents is not doable because there are no undercover officers. It's time to create a special task force or figure something else out. Remember the civilian volunteer group Guardian Angels? Please take a look at their work as a model for how New York City might adapt that model for bicycle law enforcement or figure something else out. It's incumbent upon law enforcement to protect citizens. It is not the job of the citizens to figure out how you need to do this. Thank you for hearing us. I hope we can come up with a solution. Like I said, there isn't anybody on this call that's immune from the possibilities of bicycle riders, especially electric bicycles, that break the law. Thank you.
You're on mute, Richard.
Thank you, Sally. We want to bring on Donnelly Shaw to talk about her group's efforts and her thoughts on the matter.
Hi, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. So I'm with the Pedestrian Safety Committee. We started a change.org petition a few weeks ago directed to Eric Adams, Ydanis Rodriguez, Erik Bottcher, Christopher Marti, I don't know how to pronounce his name, Carla Rivera, Keith Powers, Brad Holliman Siegel, Alex Borez, Harvey Epstein, Charles Fall, Deborah Glick, Grace Lee, Tony Simone, Brian Kavanaugh, and Liz Kruger. As of now, we have 3,155 signatures on the change.org petition demanding that some change occur. I think that 3,155 signatures is pretty significant considering this was strictly a grassroots effort. We had no mailing list. This was strictly through Nextdoor, sharing the petition link on nextdoor.com or through emails, and strictly sharing and encouraging others to share. So I think it's a pretty significant number. The comments are all the same, that people are scared, they're getting hurt when they are speaking up and talking back to the cyclists. They are getting spit on, they're getting shoved. It's a very, very scary situation. And that's pretty much all I have to say.
Thank you, Donnelly. And finally, we have Katie Savage from the 4954 Block Association Alliance. Katie.
Hi. So, part of this, we understand that delivery workers do play a big role, and we're very supportive of the efforts that the deliveristas Unidas have made to push for a minimum wage, to make it so that these workers are not incentivized to go as fast as possible just to, scrape by. We think the apps definitely need to do more in making sure that their riders are accountable and are educated on the rules of the road, as well as making sure that the delivery radius allowed for each restaurant is not excessive and causes more of these riders to use electric vehicles that could go in excess of 25 miles per hour. I do want to note that there are 100 participants on this call right now. And I know, not everyone will get a chance to speak, but I think it would be helpful if there are participants here who support the efforts to focus on pedestrian safety. If you could just raise your hand so we have, we can acknowledge how many people are raising their hands on this topic and are here for this. As Donnelly said, this change.org petition kind of just came to Richard and I organically, and we just all started getting together. We've all kind of been focusing on this and trying to make pedestrians a little bit more visible. And it looks like we have 35 people who've raised their hands. So, it keeps going up. So there's a good amount of people here who are concerned about this topic. And I think it's important to focus a little bit more on pedestrians, since that is the #1 mode of transportation in New York City. Thank you.
And that concludes our presentation. Our purpose is to, appearing before you, is to see if we can get a resolution from the Transportation Committee to the full board that will endorse this multifaceted approach and allow for further mobilization and unity amongst citizens in CB4 to change the situation. It's not just going to be one thing or another, not just advertising, not just enforcement. It's going to require all of those things, and it's going to require a large effort from the public in order to make those events happen. And we're very much looking forward to working with the Transportation Committee and all the partners that we can find to make this pedestrian safety greater. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. So I wanted to open to our committee first with if you have any questions. I'm not talking about comments yet, right? Let's have questions and not comments. We can do the comments and the discussion later on. I also wanted to point out that the petition, I looked at the petition, which is very good, which has all the numbers that you are talking, Donnelly, but when I sorted that by zip code, there is about 250 people in our zip code in CB4 and about 1,100 people in New York City. The other people are from everywhere, and it doesn't take away from what you have done. It's just a clarification. I think that shows that lots of people in a lot of cities are very, very concerned about the same thing.
I think those could also be tourists.
Very good point.
Could
be tourists, exactly. It could be tourists. So I didn't take that in account.
And it is throughout the city. Not
okay,
just
so David, yeah.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation and your time. I'm I'm going to ask a question, and later on, like you say, I'll have some comments. But I think it's great work that you're doing, and obviously we're all pedestrians. My question is, what type of specific enforcement do you want to do? I mean, years ago they used to confiscate the bicycles. I don't know if that's even legal to do that anymore. I mean, but if you're going to specifically about the enforcement role, what type of specific enforcement? Because most of the research that I've done is they talk.
Right.
All right, just specific enforcement. What is specifically?
What do you have in mind?
So, Dave, yeah, I'll take that question. I mean, part of it is that we don't know. There is all kinds of legislation being proposed and introduced for licensing, particularly on electric vehicles. But it's not just electric vehicles, as we all know, that are the problem. If people had licenses on, well, first of all, one of the things that I tried to throw out there, but it's not easy to do in a couple of minutes. If there were task force that were educated by the city and part of a city program that roamed around in different neighborhoods and stopped bicycles on, that were licensed, that they could be fined. I don't think legislation in Albany right now allows for fining and confiscation. That would be a bill that would be good, because if people lost their bikes for a day or 2 days, that really would be difficult for them. You start with fines, but there has to be something, because I go back to cars, if cars weren't, didn't get tickets and they weren't stopped for speeding and going in the wrong direction, people would just do whatever they want. And that's the situation that we're facing right now with bicycles. And we're just civilian, people. I don't know all the answers. I know. Yeah. I mean, we can look at something like guardian angels. I don't know how.
That's good. I think we got it.
I can speak to the question as well.
Cars, so please
wait,
don't compare
David.
it to cars. So that's what I'm. Because that's a different thing.
No, but we can have the discussion later, David.
Okay.
Right now we are trying to ask question, right? Brett.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. The board and this committee in particular is, very much on board with the idea of, yes, people should follow the laws, and we're constantly, commenting on the lack of enforcement. Including with bicyclists and things like that. So I think from that standpoint, I think it's, obviously we would like people to not bicycle on the sidewalks. And I'm hearing words like multifaceted and approach, and we want enforcement, but and you want a resolution. But I guess where I'm a little bit at a loss is, there is specific resolution other than we support the idea that we want to have education and enforcement? Is there something specific that this coalition is looking for from our committee beyond just we'd like to support not breaking the law?
Well, we're looking for the committee to propose a resolution that includes the different aspects that we think need to be tackled, and to use this as a way of getting resources focused. For instance, we don't have the answer on the enforcement. We have to meet with the police and come up with what's possible and what's not. So we believe that a resolution endorsing this approach will lead to greater resources and greater participation by citizens in resolving the situation.
I can speak briefly on the subject, if that's all right.
Just wait your turn, David. I'll get to you. Charles.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of comments that I'll say for our discussion later. But thank you all for the presentation. I had a similar question that Brett just had. I'm just curious to hear any of the more specific ideas and solutions that you had. I appreciated Katie's suggestion of delivery radius for restaurants, because I mean, I think the delivery cyclists are clearly going long distances at great speed, and if it was a more local delivery, perhaps we'd have less of a problem. And one thing that I haven't heard anyone speak on, I think there's a lot of confusion over the term e-bike. You know, there's 3 classes of e-bike, and then there's 3 classes of mopeds. And you know, to my eyes, what I see on our street that's causing the biggest problems are the mopeds. And any moped that you see in our streets that does not have a license plate is illegal. And most of them do not have a license plate. These are the vehicles that do not have pedals. Some of them, and many of them that we're seeing these days, are gas powered. They're basically motorcycles, and they're using the bike lane in addition to using our super sidewalks, and additionally, you'll occasionally see them on the sidewalk. So, you know, one thing that I would be more inclined one thing I would be more excited about is if we were sort of to target our energy on these things that are plainly illegal, that are all over our streets. And I think I'm a lot more concerned when I'm walking in the super sidewalk at night with my children when one of these mopeds blows by than when somebody in a city bike is not following the rules. Not acceptable to not follow the rules on a city bike, but I just think priority-wise, that's
so. Yeah.
I guess my question is: have you guys given thought to these types of moped vehicles? What we can do about that, and if there are any other targeted things other than your general frustrations with the state of the streets?
I think that the idea is to mobilize the general frustrations so that people like yourself who have the specifics and can fill in the blanks and the actual steps that need to be taken will be brought forward, and that we will come up with the proper steps to take. It's the beginning of a campaign, and we want everyone to focus on this, and we want the resolutions to come out. And your points are just excellent, and they should be part of the final, the proposals on what's to be done. But we need to get people mobilized and focused on creating those resolutions and listing them specifically, and that's what our goal is.
Okay, Richard. Viren.
Very quickly.
Questions, right? Question, not comments.
Well, it depends on who is looking at it. It's a bunch of questions, but I mean, part of it is also suggestion. Majority of folks that I ride bicycle in the city all the time, so I have sort of seen what exactly you folks are talking about. Majority of delivery and Grubhub and a whole bunch of people who actually tend to ride on the sidewalks, we know the entities. Just the way a zip car has to follow the regulation, why don't we sort of, in our resolution, potentially think about who do we write to? Writing to the city is one part of it, but requiring the city to make some sort of understanding with these big time companies that need bicycle delivery crews, and they must be required to educate their personnel to follow the law. So
Okay.
It's both a suggestion and a question, both.
Right. Okay. Katie.
Yes, I'll take this one. Thank you. So Viren, as you mentioned, following the law, and the same with Charlie as far as a lot of the vehicles that are riding on our streets that are illegal. I think there are some legislative tools that we can use. It would be great if we could have a letter asking our local electeds and the transportation commissioner to submit legislation that requires City Bike to use the app and the receipts to remind users of the basic rules of the road. That needs to be constantly put out there on all things, not just on the kiosks, but as part of the app. You know, when we were during COVID, when you were getting in an Uber, before you could request your Uber, you had to click a button and say, yes, I will be wearing a mask. We need to have something like this in the apps that make sure people know and that they're taking accountability for these rules. We also need to do a similar thing when it comes to the food delivery apps and grocery delivery apps, all of those, so that those workers, when they are getting a delivery, that they're also made aware of what the laws are. You know, when they sign into the app to start working and start accepting deliveries, they need to be able to constantly, it just needs to be, I think it's a lot of just repetition, making sure you just can't get away from it. And you can't continue on through the app experience without clicking, checking, giant words, multilingual, making sure it's very prominent. And also, you know, there should be a way, especially with Revel, which has a lot of these motorized scooters, is they need to be tracking more to make sure that these scooters are not riding on sidewalks, that they're not riding against the flow of traffic. Technology like that exists to make sure, and you know, they have GPS in all of these vehicles. So they should be able to have oversight on that to make sure that people who are using their services are not disregarding the law. And if they're not, then maybe these companies should be held accountable because they're not providing this proper information to the people who are renting their vehicles. I think that covers some of, you know, the enforcement things. It's a little bit of both, a little bit of legislation that gives us the tools to do the enforcement.
Okay, Dave.
Thank you. In order to solve the problem, we have to know how it began. It began when the city council declared that all wheeled vehicles are bicycles. Governor Cuomo, when he was governor, said pedal assist vehicles are okay to be qualified as bicycles. That is one thing. The city council declared that every e-bike, moped, everything else is to be declared a bicycle. That's how this problem started. And that's why we now have the broken windows in reverse situation, because there has been no enforcement. Bicyclists think they can do whatever they want. So we have to get the city council who created this problem to take responsibility for it. Let you know that even these bikes, they are all motorcycles. They are all capable of breaking the speed limit. Most of them weigh over 80 pounds. We need to license and register every bike. If you're on a regular pedal bike or a pedal assist bike, fine. Stay in the bike lanes. Everything else has to be registered, licensed, and you need a license to ride and drive a motorcycle. And that's how we have to take care of this problem. But it's up to the city council. We have to get them to admit their mistakes, that they didn't know what they were doing. They didn't see the consequences, take responsibility, and we've got to start doing it. And that's how we solve this problem, is to make them registered and insured like everything else and licensed.
Okay, Dave, thank you. Sally.
Thank you. I just want to bring this around again after all of the comments, because I don't think there's anybody that made a comment that didn't disagree with the fact that enforcement is the major problem and we have to figure it out. I have lived in New York City my whole adult life. I am a bike rider. And for those of you in my age group who are bike riders, riding around in the city on my bicycle 20, 30 years ago, I don't know how many years ago, I always rode with traffic. I was never afraid. I always wore a helmet and I always rode with the cars because everybody was following the rules. I just drove with traffic. The only thing I had to worry about was potholes and drivers and parked cars opening their doors. Other than that, nothing was a problem. Now that we've expanded to the bike lanes, which if they're used properly are wonderful. The problem is that it's only the people driving with traffic that are obeying the rules, and then people get in the bike lanes and do whatever they want. And they're electric vehicles, they're mopeds, they're on the sidewalks, and there is no control. And it all gets down to enforcement. If those mopeds and those electric bicycles were riding with the cars, I don't think any of us would be here. It's because they're riding on the bicycles and not obeying the rules of the bike lanes that we're having this discussion.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to do now is open to the public and panelists. One more, Alan.
Thank you. Quick question. In terms of licensing and registration, would that be the New York State to do, or would the city have the authority to do that? Dave?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
I believe it would be the state because it's the State Department of Motor Vehicles.
Right.
And that is something that there is currently legislation that has been drafted in the Assembly and submitted requiring any e-powered vehicle, not something that's like the e-assist bikes, but, fully automatic or motorized, anything that's capable of going over 20 miles per hour must be licensed and registered. And, just like you have a hit and run with a car, you're able to get license plates potentially. When you have a hit and run with a bike right now, you don't have a way to identify that bike rider. If all of these bikes, especially again, the ones that are going excessive rates of speed, they need to be able to be identified. So this is something that has been submitted to the state assembly. And, it'd be great if our local electeds could, jump on that and support it.
Katie, do you know offhand who sponsored the bill?
It doesn't have a sponsor right now, but I think Alex Boris from the Upper East Side is interested in pushing it forward.
All right, thank you.
So in the public, I would ask you all to turn down your hands, to turn off your hands right now. And oh, Lydia is here. Could you, Janine, bring Lydia over? Janine?
Yes, I'm sorry. Who do I bring over?
Lydia is here.
Okay, I'll bring her over. Okay.
Lydia, how are you? So Lydia Gualepa is the, you can introduce yourself, right? She's the executive director of Los Deliveristas Unidos, right? That's the way it is. And I invited her so that she can explain the programs and the projects they have for the Deliverista to educate and, really bring everybody in compliance.
Yeah, so thank you so much, Christine, and the entire board for inviting me to be part of this conversation and this dialogue. So briefly, Los Deliveristas Unidos, it's a organization that started organizing with Workers' Justice Project in 2020, especially during a time when most of them really came out of the shadows as essential workers to keep everybody fed and safe, but also as a main, as a way of survival as well in the city. And since 2020, there has been a complete rise of food delivery work on these online platforms. So most deliveristas have turned, and I think most of the restaurant industry has turned to rely on the app that is Grubhub, DoorDash, Uber. And it is true, there's, we think the number is growing. There's more than 65,000 deliveristas. And there is issues that we are concerned as well. And I think our issues and our concerns are very aligned. There are safety issues that deliveristas and us, the organization, is concerned. There is accidents. There is a lack of infrastructure. There is a lack of education. And we are focusing on building the street deliverista hubs with intention of bringing not only charging stations, but also build education. Unfortunately, a lot of the app companies don't provide the resources and education that deliveristas have. When a deliverista is onboarded on the app, most of the apps don't train workers, not even how to do this work, nor how to ride the city safely. The second issue is that we advocated for a package of laws is because the reason deliveristas are speeding so fast and sometimes in a rush to do these deliveries, it's also because they don't have a minimum wage. Their deliveries depend on how many deliveries they do it. So the more deliveries they do, the more likely of tips they will have. We are right now fighting for the city of New York to pass a minimum pay because we strongly believe that if a deliverista is paid every minute he's on the road making a delivery, there wouldn't be a pressure for the worker to be on a rush because his time is being paid. And this is the minimum pay that we're trying to enact, a law that was passed. But unfortunately, Mayor Adams is not wanting to release the final rule. And right now, our priority is to make sure that we pass this minimum pay, not just because we want workers to get paid, because we strongly believe it will address the speed issue. Because we strongly believe a deliverista is being paid the time he's riding his bike by every minute. We strongly believe that the worker, there is an incentive already to make sure that the deliverista does this right. And I strongly agree, one of our initiatives with the street deliverista hubs is to expand education. Unfortunately, a lot of the education that it's out there, it's not in Spanish. Most of the delivery community also speaks indigenous language like Quiche, Mam, Cachiquel, which are languages that a lot of this education is not in their language, is not interactive, is not visual. So we want to expand education. We completely agree there needs to be accountability on the apps. We strongly believe that they need to make sure that they offer not only protections, but they're not consistently harassing workers to do the deliveries, because the core of the issue is that these companies are putting an extreme amount of pressure on workers to do these deliveries faster, because the more deliveries they do, the more profitable these companies become. So, most of the workers are on the bottom to the race pretty much. And that's why we extremely want to continue to partner with community boards, hear your concerns, find ways that we can continue to educate workers, build a better infrastructure, and most importantly, being able to hold these apps accountable who have come to our city pretty much to run our city and to run our streets.
So, Lydia, I wanted to ask you, one of the things that the coalition is interested in doing a lot of training, and would you be ready to go with them and on the major bike lane and hand out some flyers, etc.?
Absolutely. I'm actually with some of the leaders who joined,
right.
William.
Hello, everybody.
Right.
Hi, everybody. Antonio,
Yeah, because I think that would be very effective. There is a wanting of doing a lot of education and working with you. I think it would be much more effective.
We're definitely here to collaborate, to cooperate, and to make our city safe. Deliveristas not only, are interested in work in our city, but they're part of the community. And there is a common interest. So we're interested in doing our outreach, figured out how we're going to be building 2 deliverista hubs, and hopefully we can partner to continue to build infrastructure that meets the needs. And I agree, makes, our streets safer for you all and also for workers. So we're up to do education with you all.
So, thank you so much, Lydia. Richard, I will put you in touch so you can start the process.
That would be excellent.
David Selnick, you have a question?
Yeah, specifically to this group of the deliveristas. I'm very sympathetic to your pointing out that the wage structure is a big driver of the problem, and I completely agree with that. I have to say that I'm rather skeptical about education being a major part of the solution to this problem, because it assumes that people are riding on sidewalks because they don't know that it's illegal. That's not my experience with New York laws. I mean, most laws are broken every day by all of us crossing the street, and it's not generally ignorance that is the driver of that. So my question to you is, I mean, I'm not opposed to education. It's a fine thing. Have at it. But my question is, do you really think, no matter what language the particular deliverista speaks, do you really think that there's a significant percentage of the deliveristas who don't know that riding on the sidewalk is illegal?
Yeah, so I think I agree with you that education is not the only solution. I think there needs to be different ways where we do this, right? I want to acknowledge that. And by no means I'm saying education is one of the ways is going to solve it all. But the reality is that the majority of deliveristas don't know how to write and read. I actually have had instances where deliveristas have said, hey, there is different colors and signs. Like, I don't understand what that means. So we strongly believe education is part of it, about making sure deliveristas know about it, about the different signs that are there. Obviously, you know, I think the issues is not just, I mean, the way to solve it is not just education, but is the right step, I think, to ensure workers understand what are the rights and the laws. And I think the next step is definitely, you know, how we hold, there is, yes, collective accountability, but we strongly believe the accountability cannot just go to the workers, because there is a higher force that is pressuring workers to go in a faster speed, do this in extreme speed, is because they depend on your tips to make ends meet. They don't have a pay. So majority are in that incentive of rushing and going fast. So we think minimum pay is important, and enforcing the right for workers to decide how far they want to travel. And we are willing to explore all the ways too, on how we can, you know, make our streets safe. You know, think of us as your partners to find solutions. We understand there's issues. We understand the accountability. We're in it with you, and we want to find those solutions in a way that, you know, it's a win-win for everybody, and we're not harming anyone.
Okay, Lydia. Charlie.
Yeah, I have a question for deliveristas as well. Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm curious what complaints that the deliveristas might have in terms of our infrastructure, and what could be done to our city street infrastructure that perhaps could minimize some of this rule breaking. I agree with David. I think that, you know, most New Yorkers, you know, even people who have recently joined us from other countries understand that you're not supposed to run a red light or you're not supposed to bike on the sidewalk, but they choose not to do it. So I'm wondering if there's an infrastructure solution, whether it's, you know, green wave signal timing. So, you know, we could have the lights time out at 10 miles an hour, 11 miles an hour, rather than the speed of cars. So cyclists don't stop as much. They don't stop every other light. And that's, you know, what causes them to want to run the red light, because they are constantly having to stop because their signals are timed for cars. Or
so the question was,
yeah, I guess I'm getting into my answers to this question, but which is fair. I'm just curious, you know, is it wider bike lanes? Is it two-way bike lanes? Or what are some infrastructure solutions that could help this?
Buenas tardes.
Good afternoon.
Sí, mi nombre es William Medina, soy un líder de los Deliveristas Unidos y miembro de Worker Justice Project.
My name is William and I'm a member of Los Deliveristas Unidos.
Por supuesto, necesitamos crear un plan, como tú dices, no solamente para educar a los trabajadores, también nosotros estamos creando diferentes programas para que todos estos deliveristas de alguna manera entiendan y crean conciencia de sí mismos, que saben que la única manera de hacer estos cambios para la comunidad no es solamente educándolos en las calles, sino también creando unos programas que los hacemos aquí en el centro en Williamsburg, en donde nosotros estamos trabajando conjuntamente, educando a los trabajadores, incentivándolos a las buenas prácticas con sus vehículos y con el buen manejo de sus aplicaciones, por supuesto.
So some of the things that I want to mention that we're doing at our centers and we want to expand in the city is that we're also educating them. And the way we started educating is them helping them get their driver's license permit, which they have to go through a test program that allows them to learn more about, you know, how to respect the traffic lines and stuff like that. And just to add, I think infrastructure wise, bike parking is huge. Sometimes workers don't have where to park their bikes, so they bring their bikes inside the restaurants or closer to the restaurants, which brings, you know, the bikes into closer to the to there. So a lot of deliveristas don't have secure bike parking or where to hook their bikes. Bike theft is a big issue. So if you see a deliverista even like, taking their bike inside the buildings, is because they're strongly afraid of that somebody will steal their main tool of equipment.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Quickly, Viren and Richard, etc. Yeah, we have like 30 people who want to talk.
Yeah, I'm just going to make it quick. I think, Ligia, a couple of things that you said. Education is always very helpful, but if I'm signing up to be a UPS driver, I must know how to drive in the city. So I don't know, one way of sort of making sure is that everyone who actually joins delivery service is equipped to ride along the city streets and know how to do that. That's number one. And the number two question is, in terms of bike parking, it's a huge problem, Christine. And I know that even when I have to lock my bike, sometimes you don't have a bike rack. And the delivery folks tend to lock their bikes closer to where they're going, to the building, on the sidewalk, along the bus stop post or whatever post that might be available to them, including fence. So I think these are some of the issues, but the fundamental issue from my point of view is, if we have people that we hire, they're required to do a certain job. Education is one part of it, but built-in system of making them understand before you hire them is equally important. That's what I would say.
Okay, Richard.
Just real briefly, the one thing I hear all the time is, oh, don't bother with the education. Everyone knows it's not going to help. We need to take that first step. Who knows what's going to come out of it? Let's try. We're looking for a night out with local people, teaming up with the Deliveristas Union and the police and whoever, to go and address people face to face. And finally, yes, we do not have the solutions. The purpose of this meeting and this campaign is to start looking for them and acting upon them. So this is the beginning. Thank you.
Okay, David, you may want to mute. Alan, and then that's the last one. We'll go to the public.
Okay. Thank you, Ligia. So it seems to me that a lot of the problems or the situations that the deliveristas find themselves, the major partner here are the apps, are the companies. My understanding is that deliveristas are basically independent contractors. So as such, you're probably not going to get much support from public companies that their interest is in maximizing their profit and looking out for their shareholders rather than looking out for the workers who are out there struggling and making. So is there any effort being made to somehow position these deliveristas as employees somehow? Is there any political force? Is there any outreach that you're making to our elected somehow to try to do something like that?
Yeah. Yes, the answer is yes. Unfortunately, it's a much longer fight that we don't think we're going to win it. Not even the federal government has figured out that might take us years to get there. And that's why we're trying to implement local laws to show to the state that it is possible for workers to have rights that are similar to worker rights. I just want to emphasize how important it is the minimum pay, because minimum pay plays a factor on safety, and many people are not talking about it. The reason you see deliveristas riding like crazy, speeding as fast as we can, is because they depend on sometimes they need to do as many deliveries in order to make ends meet. But if a deliverista is paying by the time that they're making the delivery, every minute is being paid, trust me, deliveristas will make sure they respect every red light. They go as slow as possible because they know that they will be paid every minute they riding that bike.
I think we got it. David, can you bring down your hand so I can sort out? And so in the public now, we have 12 people with a hand. I presume you all want to speak. And I'm going to ask Janine, to start to bring people over 2 by 2 or 3 by 3.
Okay, so I'll bring Joyce, Deborah, and Chris.
Yes. And again, it's
just
going
a note
be,
to everybody that you will need to accept to be brought over, so please accept.
Yeah, and it's going to be 1 minute only. Otherwise, we are going to spend the whole night here. What do we have? Where is the first person? Is Joyce? Is Joyce there?
Joyce, please accept. Otherwise, you will not be able to speak. Chris is over if you want to start with him.
Yeah, Chris, 1 minute.
Oh, thank you so much. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you so much. Hola, Ligia. It's been a long time. I haven't seen you since, I was running back in May and June last year when we were protesting together. Quick question, kind of like piecemeal, so that way we could just work on a solution together. I think that the organization that was that just came up in terms of pedestrian safety, I think you guys need to link up here in Hell's Kitchen because there's a lot of legislative solutions and it's very, very dense and it's very in the weeds. But I think the best way that we can find a solution outside of a letter from CB4 is to sit down with Erik Bottcher, to sit down with Mark Levine's office, and Selvina Brooks Powers, who's the chair of transportation, Carmen De La Rosa, who is the chair of labor, Marjorie Velasquez, who is the chair on rights, and then Jennifer Gutierrez, who is the chair of technology.
Chris, maybe I'm going to put you in touch with them, and you can.
Yeah, let's all get together and have a meeting, and then also, yeah, if it's possible, can you arrange a time with Richard and Sally Greenspan and a few of the block associations, so that way you can observe our main corridors on 9th, 10th, and 8th Avenue. Nothing to start communications with delivery workers,
wait.
Like
this
that,
is
but
not,
just to like.
This is not. Maybe this is not the place to do that yet. But
I mean, if we can all just get together and figure out what is actually possible here,
yes,
that'd be really helpful, because otherwise it gets really long. Like Christine said, thank you so much for your time.
Thanks. Blake, Ron, Windiski.
Yeah, I brought over Jen and Ron in the meantime.
Who? I'm looking.
Jen and Ron.
Hi, Christine. Thank you all.
Oh, yes.
The information was marvelous. Unless there's enforcement with meaningful fines, this chaos will never end. It's so entrenched in the city now because there has been absolutely no consequences for this behavior. And the police need to write tickets. There need to be fines involved. The fines need to be collected. The district attorney needs to prosecute if the fines are not collected. And all of that needs to be publicized. And there's your education. When it's publicized that you will be fined if you ride on the sidewalk. You will be fined if you ride against traffic. Now, as far as the mopeds go, the mayor last year collected about 50 of them and took them to Hunts Point and ran them over with a steamroller, if you might recall. Why isn't he doing that now? And confiscate these bikes, confiscate them, and let them feel some pain. We're sick of it. It's dangerous out there, and the only solution is enforcement of the laws that already exist. Thanks so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Jan.
Yes, I was just going to follow up on that. I've been a biker in New York City since 1970. So before 9/11, there were actual sting operations on the street. And if you were riding illegally, there was a policeman who would pull you over and you had to go down for a court date and plead your case. I won in my case, but I thought I had a good case. But at any rate, I think that, I don't know if that'll make a difference, but it certainly got my attention. And the bikers that were out on the street with me at that time sort of knew what the territory was where there were sting operations in the past, and they expected them, and everybody slowed down. Everybody started paying attention to all the laws. So if you could just make a little incremental situation like that where, you know, I mean, the word gets out, but it made a difference and people really were aware of it. So I'm all for enforcement, but I think there were sting operations and it was NYPD and you had to have a driver's license on you and you got pulled into court and it was all very, very scary. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Caroline, you're on mute.
Yes, hello. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for this opportunity in the forum. I am a CB4 resident. I have been for 5 years now speaking with people in the community. Dave, Achilles, thank you so much for your work, as well as the other people in the Bikes on Sidewalks tonight who have spoken. As someone who has been hit more than once, and I am a cyclist, and I am a fundraising cyclist, so cycling is very important to me and my life. I have permanent damage in my knee, cartilage that cannot be repaired. I agree with everyone who has been saying, and I have been saying for a very long time and trying to express this to Erik Bottcher's office and to Jordan Feiner and other people involved, including Hoylman. Unless there is a licensing and tagging system, there is no accountability. And the NYPD is very, very much in favor of this because then they will be able to see who is breaking the law. The cyclists will have to be fined, as already mentioned, and then the restaurant from which they are traveling or the app has to be suffering a penalty as well. I agree with the app education, great. I agree with what the Deliveristas is trying to do, that's fantastic. But unless there is accountability that is enforced, this is not going to stop. And it is not, Charles, I appreciate your comment about strictly motorbikes, but it is not that. It is motorized bikes and scooters. I was clipped on 5th Avenue at 19th Street by a scooter going the wrong way and the opposite way on the street, going the wrong way on a one-way and down the wrong way on the street. This involves scooters as well. If we're going to start with the bicyclists with accountability, and yes, the education is the fines that they are publicized. There has to be a licensing and tagging system. We did discuss this, and this is part of our proposal for solution. It has to be strong. The city's streets are a mess, as everyone here knows, and nothing will change unless we have accountability and we're hitting businesses and people in their pockets. No one is going to care. Not even moving on to Central Park is a disaster. So thank you for your time and thank you for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate it.
PK.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you for this opportunity to be heard. My wife and I have lived in Hell's Kitchen for about 20 years, and I've ridden a bike in New York since the 1980s. Solidaridad, deliveristas y buena suerte. Good luck, guys. Deliveristas do need to know the rules. They need a minimum wage. However, violators are not just delivery people. As already mentioned, people on city bikes can also be problematic. It's not just people earning money on bikes. Bike, scooter, e-bike, moped, pedicab, revel, city bike, they're all a problem. Pretty much all electric gas-powered vehicles are capable of exceeding 20 miles per hour. Bikes with battery-powered motors, battery-powered scooters, they shamelessly disregard traffic rules. They regularly ride on sidewalks. They go the wrong way down streets. They blatantly ignore red lights. Gas-powered scooters, or what you're calling mopeds here, blatantly ignore red lights, and they use the bike lanes at high speeds, making the bike lanes dangerous for bikers and pedestrians at crosswalks alike. Pedicabs, which are mostly battery-powered now, commonly go the wrong way down streets and they ignore red lights. The expanded pedestrian lane on 9th Avenue, which is a great development, is constantly used by bikes and scooters for two-way traffic. Pedestrians are always at risk, and we have to make way when walking on sidewalks and when crossing with the light. And people walking their dogs have to be especially vigilant. Richard and David talked about education, and that's fine. But I agree with David, Sally, and Dave. Most people know what the rules are. The problem is that there's no enforcement. When I ask bikers to ride in the bike lane, and I'm not afraid to confront them, sometimes they're cool, but usually it's F you. So write tickets. There used to be cops on bikes. You know, what happened to them? The city could be getting good revenue while making the streets safer for pedestrians and our pets if there was even modest enforcement. So please enforce the safety rules for the good of everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Christine?
Hi, my name is Christine Gorman. I'm the president of the West 55th Street Block Association. And we wrote a letter, to the Transportation Planning Committee with some possible solutions with respect to the super sidewalk on 9th Avenue, which we all like, but we're afraid to use because of the incursions by the speeding bikes. I think the issue really is speed, whether it's a battery powered or e-bike or a gas powered bike. If you get hit at 20 miles per hour, you're going to suffer some damage. One thought, what about speed guns, showing up, making a show of having speed guns in the bike lanes with the same way that I know if people on highways, when they see a police officer with a speed gun, they tend to slow down. I agree with licenses. I wonder, very, very intrigued by everything that Los Deliveristas talked about. Signage, not just in English, but the way they do, visual signs in the super walkway, showing that it's just for pedestrians, the pedestrian sign, showing, bike lanes with the bike signs. There are things that can be done there. I agree with licensing and tagging. I do know, having talked at Midtown North last night, that the traffic unit at Midtown North is 1 sergeant and 4 officers, and they do everything from cars to vans to bikes. So there is a staffing issue when it comes to enforcement. If you're depending on NYPD, there is, Deputy Inspector O'Connell said, a citywide traffic enforcement unit that where there is a bike unit within that, and he agreed to ask for more help for bike patrols in the Midtown North area. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So is Brian next? Is that, yeah?
Yeah, Brian's next.
Hi, thank you, everyone. Brian Weber, West 36th Street Block Association, and the president of the Midtown South Precinct Community Council. First of all, I wanted to say I've been riding a bike on city streets since the 1970s, so there's my age for you. But I also really want to note that our delivery drivers in New York are the best and always have been the best. You can't get delivery like this anywhere else other than New York. And I know a lot of New Yorkers rely on them. And to the deliveristas that are here, you might be hearing some strong language directed towards delivery drivers, but no, it's not frustration with you. It's a frustration with the general conditions and situation on our streets. We really appreciate you. And I agree that you are certainly essential workers to New York City. I want to pick up on something that both Viren and Katie Savage were speaking about, which is the apps. We mentioned City Bike. We've mentioned third-party delivery apps such as DoorDash, Uber Eats, and I'm not thinking of them off the top of my head, but all of these delivery apps and City Bike have a mobile function to them. And they are able, if you order food, to track where your delivery is in the course of that route of the food delivery. One basic suggestion, and this is putting the onus on the delivery app, and this might be something to ask our legislation for, is that when a driver makes a pickup, they have to agree to a code every time they pick up, as Katie was talking about, but B, the delivery app prescribes a route that they have to take that is compliant with traffic laws, compliant with street directions, and they are able to track if that driver deviates from that direction on the street. If that driver deviates a certain number of times, maybe they are suspended from deliveries for the remainder of that evening, or for a certain period of time, to hold them accountable. But the same thing should be true for City Bike users. City Bike users are all on mobile phones. City Bike can figure out which way we are riding in the bike lanes. And if we're going counter to traffic or, cutting through parks. So perhaps riders are suspended as well, because I don't think that having an enforcement task force out on one corner one day is going to get us to where we want to be with solving this. We have technology, and we should use that technology to help us with these solutions. And we should put some of that burden on the technology that has increased this activity on the street. And then the other thing I would just ask is perhaps Deliverista want to come back to the board with some requests for how we can support you for your infrastructure needs, because it's something that I think this community would be very amenable to, whether it's rest stations, whether it's bike corrals or whatever. But I think that's something that would be really helpful for us to have and understand from your perspective what would help beyond minimum wage, which I think would all support also. So thank the board and thank everyone for their time here.
Thank you, Brian. I think the next is Michael Warchi.
Hi, yes. I think it's interesting that we're having this discussion in the context of our built environment that has still not progressed since the 19th century. Thank you, Alan, for mentioning the corporations and the shareholders. I think that our streets are built for the fossil fuel industry and the 5,000-pound metal cages that suit them. My question is, on these streets that are of the highest concern, are there bike lanes on these streets? What do those bike lanes look like? Are they connected? When we talk about the antiquated built environment, it saddens me that we're discussing guns, sting operations, enforcement, and police. I think those 19th century solutions are not creative solutions, and we have to think beyond traditional solutions, beyond enforcement and more upstream, as Charles mentioned before. Where are the bike lanes? What do they look like? What is the quality of the bike infrastructure? And I think it's really interesting that we have a lot of cycling anti-cyclists in this meeting today. I would love to see some receipts. Good night.
Okay, Michael. Christian Liando. You have to go off mute, otherwise I can't hear you. Here you go.
I apologize. I'm kind of new to this. Thank you for allowing me to speak. We need enforcement. Education is a good idea, but it is not enough. We make operators of other motorized vehicles get licenses and they still break the law. So I don't see anything different with cyclists. Cyclists are part of the fabric of the city and should be treated in the same manner as others. They are not above the rest of us. I think that licensing or some sort of certification is a good idea. If we make companies certify their workers, then maybe we can make them responsible for the behavior that happens. It shouldn't be expensive. It should be accessible, and it should be a gradual implementation. We have to recognize that an e-bike is a motorized vehicle. It's not human powered. It can achieve much higher speeds than human powered vehicles, and they are heavy, and thus their impacts can hurt. They can hurt. They don't always kill, but they can cause injury. Delivery people are not really the problem. There are a lot of personal riders, and a lot of the problems that I have had are with city bikes. We have laws, they need to be enforced, and they need to define motorized vehicles for what they are. Also, as for bike parking, that also needs to be addressed. If you look at 8th Avenue between 44th and 45th, you can see some of the problem with the parking. A lot of those bikes stay there overnight. They stay there for long periods of time, and some of them have been vandalized and some of them have been taken apart. And when you call up the people who do the trash to kind of get rid of it, they don't handle it. So long story short is bicyclists are part of our transportation. They should be treated the same. We need to address this because cycling is up and it's great and cycling is good. But with more people, we need to have those people be more responsible. That's all.
Thank you, Christian. Andy.
Hi, Andy Hom. I'm the treasurer of the London Terrace Tenants Association, and we're not anti-bike. And a lot of these problems are very recent. And I think we have heard what the reasons are here. By the way, I've tried to talk to all my elected officials about this, most of whom I'm personal friends with, and I get a blank stare. I do not get a response. The only thing we're hearing is from Erik, and he's a good friend, but he's saying we're going to do some kind of an education system in the schools. That is not going to solve this problem. I hope their representatives are listening to us tonight. I want to reiterate I don't want to repeat things, but I want to reiterate, get motorized bicycles into the traffic, out of the bike lanes. That law has to be changed, or we're not going to solve this problem. We've got to ban these lithium batteries entirely. They're entirely too dangerous. They've just got to be banned and either get a registered motor kind of vehicle to bring things around, but they've got to be banned. There've got to be ticket blitzes. You've got to ban the 15-minute delivery services. They did this stuff in the suburbs because too many people were getting too many traffic accidents and deaths. Got to get our public officials involved. It's a citywide problem. We're not going to solve it right here. But there can be no excuses for the lawlessness that has taken over the city. Seriously, folks. We've got to make this broader. Thank you.
Thank you, Jehaya.
Hello, thank you for a chance to talk. I'll sort of echo some of the comment that Andy just mentioned of here's a perfect example of cars on the sidewalk. And just hopefully to remind everyone that thinks, licensing might be a perfect solution. I've been trying to get these off this sidewalk for years and they're still there. And so I do think there are sort of broader issues, and it's unfortunate that the city is very slow to adapt to the changes that are happening in transportation. So I do want to mention a couple of things that I think are solutions this community board can help sort of advocate for and has many times. I think one specifically around a lot of the conflict at intersections, advocating for better signal timing that's not 25 miles an hour, but is 15 miles an hour will go a long way to reducing the number of people that are running red lights, both cars and bikes alike. I think also a lot of the issues with cyclists on sidewalks is data shows that it's reduced when there's a bike lane there. And even though it feels like all the avenues have bike lanes, I know there's very few that go across town in our district that have bike lanes. And so continuing to advocate for more of those will help move cyclists off sidewalks where that happens. And then I'll also just say, I'm very interested to see how the dynamics of this issue play out on the new 10th Ave bike lane, because it will be notably wider. And I know that was something that was asked for about the 9th Avenue space where the sidewalk extension went in. And maybe there's some things we can learn from that, if that helps sort of reduce conflicts, to come back and ask DOT to sort of address that. Because the reality is, we have space on our streets. It's just that too much of it is taken up with, cars waiting for the tunnel, and we need to just continue to reallocate space on our streets so that, we can walk on the sidewalks. We don't have to deal with cars or, bikes on the sidewalk, and there's enough bike lane space for people to pass, just like we give, drivers 3, 4, 5, 6 lanes on the avenues. It's reasonable to give cyclists 2 to reduce the conflict with pedestrians. So I think that was most of what I wanted to say. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for just really treating all the aspects of this with care. Thank you.
Okay, so the next is Miriam.
Just for the record, I'm not anti-bike. I'm actually a member of TA. My husband was involved with that, and I'm also a member of Auto Free New York after I was hit in a coma by a yellow taxi. DOT published statistics for 2022, 312 pedestrians hit by bicyclists. We don't know how serious a lot of those injuries are. Some of the people who were injured would also have been injured by regular bicycles. We have people with disabilities. We have people who are blind. We have seniors who are afraid to cross the street. A broken hip is a very serious injury for a senior and actually increases mortality, I think, by about 30%. We have a range of kinds of vehicles. Some of them are not electric bikes, but they're just bicycles, and they do injure people. And I think that has not been said at all. It's the focus has been on electric. All bicycles need to follow the rules. Street Blog published City Bike that statistics that there are about 850,000 rides per week. That's a lot of rides, about 120,000 per day. They're not electric bikes. People are injured by bicycles. I do think that the licensing is an important publicity for accountability, and the publicity of getting tickets registers with everyone because they know that it's happening. There is a city council person, Robert Holden, who did submit last October a bill for licensing, starting with electric bikes. I've spoken to his staff. They said they have about 10, 11 signatures. none of the electeds in Manhattan have signed at all. And that, I think, says something. And I think even if the licensing would come from the state, this is a start. This is publicity. This is information that this is not acceptable. Everything is a first step. In Chelsea, the pedestrian who was killed August 2022 by a hit and run driver and on 22nd and 8th Avenue, which is a street with good bicycle lanes and a lot of traffic lights because it's a block from a school. And I think there's a light almost in every street, starting about 16th Street to 23rd. It isn't the lanes, it was somebody who hit and run. We have his picture, but not his identity. Licensing would change that. And I, could affirm what many of the things people have said. And the key words to me are publicity and accountability. And I think that has to guide a lot of our thinking and our planning. Thank you.
Hey, Miriam. Monica Bartley. I think I missed you before.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak. I'm Monica Bartlett from Disabled in Action. I would like to bring to your attention people with disabilities who are severely at risk from mopeds and bicycles on the sidewalk. Some of us have very slow reflexes and cannot respond quickly when we're threatened by these bicycles or mopeds on the sidewalk. And people who are blind are severely at risk because at least some of us are able to see what's coming at us, but then they depend on hearing the sound, but not sure exactly from what direction. And this is not only a problem on the sidewalks, but also in the bike lanes where they travel against the traffic. So sometimes when we get the green light to cross, there are the motorcycles coming down. You didn't stop to think that they would be going through the light. So this is really a very serious problem that needs to be addressed. I think licensing is important and education as well. I am in support of having a minimum wage for the delivery workers because this is also a very useful service that people with disabilities benefit from who cannot leave home. But it is important that there is some form of regulation that would at least keep them in check so that they are held accountable for their actions. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Janine, can you bring we have five more people.
Yeah, Stanley and Roberta are coming over next.
I don't see Stanley and Roberta yet. Oh, okay.
Stanley's over.
Stanley, go ahead. You're on mute.
Mute. Okay, start video.
You're good. We can hear you.
Okay. I was on the board of transportation alternatives back at the beginning in the Koch days. I've been riding a bike most of my life, Paris, Portland, Oregon, where I grew up, and mainly here in New York City. Okay, I was stopped at a bicycle light, and next to me was a Whole Foods cargo bike. We were speaking together. His cargo bike is geared to go no faster than 13 miles an hour. You can't go faster than that. Okay. This seems like a good speed for the unlicensed alternative motorized vehicles. Okay. If all alternative motorized vehicles could go no faster than 13 miles an hour, that would solve part of the problem. I've been stopped at a bicycle light, and while waiting for the light, I've been hit by city bikes and as well as motorized bikes. Okay, riding out there right now is a little bit like a Mad Max movie. Okay, anytime I ride from downtown to uptown and back, I avoid zombie pedestrians, a lot of different bikes, and it's a real problem. And the idea of promoting safety is very good, but how it can work really well is you have to get input from the cycling community in general. It needs to be on different platforms in different ways to spread the information, because a lot of people don't know. The last time I saw somebody get a ticket on a bicycle was park police. They were watching videos for 3 hours above Chelsea piers together in their motorized vehicles. I was sitting in the park editing a play. We finished about the same time. I was walking back, and I saw them stop a couple, not going fast, riding in the park, and give them a ticket. They were a married couple honeymooning from London. They didn't know the rules. A lot of cyclists do not actually know the rules of the road. Okay, and if we do good education in different ways, I'm talking about videos. Ask people in their teens and 20s what people are watching. It needs to be in multiple languages. But we as a city must work together. The only way to solve this problem is if we work together, not against each other. Okay, there's all kinds of small issues bicyclists can give to the new cyclists. It's not a growing cycling community, it's booming. Okay, I once got a ticket in Portland, Oregon in like 1973 for going through a red light. What was my fine?
You have used your time.
Okay, let me finish this one point, and the fine was going to a class for an hour and a half on safety. That's another alternative to a fine. Okay, if you have to go to court and go to a safety class. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you so much. Robert, sir.
So I just want to say, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I just want to say two main things. First of all, in my building, we have a number of people over 70, and we have a number of people who are handicapped significantly with Parkinson's and other illnesses. And even if a bike on the sidewalk is going 5 or 10 miles an hour, they can't get out of the way. to say nothing about people who are blind. It is very scary on the sidewalk. But the main thing I want to point out is that Andy Hump said something that is my concern. When you talk to our elected officials, you get a blank stare. I have one question. Why did the police stop fining people for breaking the law? I stood next to a cop one day. There was somebody going the wrong way in the bike lane. I said, aren't you going to ticket him? And the answer was no. There is an unspoken rule or something going on. I don't know who is lobbying the police. I don't know who is lobbying the police or our elected officials to stay out of it. But there is something going on where our elected officials and our police have been told hands off the bikes. And maybe it has to do with the holy dollar. Maybe it has to do with the power, but it's some lobby group. There is some undercurrent here where nothing is being done and our safety is at risk. And I thank you so much, Christine, and this committee, which has again been excellent. Thank you.
Thank you. So we have 3 more, right?
Yeah, I'm trying to bring them over, but they're not accepting. Again, if you need to speak, please accept to be promoted to panelists. I also wanted to point out that Danielle Mindis from the Manhattan Community Court is on. If you'd like me to bring her.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. I'll bring her in the meantime. I'm gonna bring her over. Give me one moment.
Okay, we'll do the 2 more and then Danielle.
Okay. Oh, Arnold is on now. If you want.
Okay. Can you hear me here? Can you hear me?
Yes, we
Okay.
can.
A couple things. A few years ago, I talked to DOT and I suggested something to them. You have people going in the bike lanes the wrong way. So if you put
you are going in and out. I don't know. You have to.
Okay, let me try to get closer. You have people going in the bike lanes the wrong way. And if you put the words, you're an idiot, that can only be seen if you're going the wrong way, that would kind of give them a thought of not to go the wrong way. But beyond that, on the sidewalk, if you put street, right now you could go on a sidewalk and go in a straight line. But if you put street furniture on a sidewalk so that bicycles could no longer go in a straight line, if you see what I'm saying, it would force them to not have a good route to walk on to be on a sidewalk anymore. It would make it unacceptable. People could walk around the barriers, but bicycles would have trouble walking through there, going through there. Maybe it's unfeasible. Maybe it would be feasible only in high traffic areas, but it would stop the bikes on those blocks. Something else that could be done, if you created optical illusions on sidewalks that can only be seen above 5 miles an hour, then you could scare the cyclists to death or do something to change their perception of reality. I think the app is good to go and do things, look for some out-of-the-box solutions to this also, not just, education. They know, most of these people know damn well they shouldn't be doing it. The people who are going the wrong direction, they know this. Education isn't going to do it. You can't get them a ticket. What are other ways you can come up with to do this? And just, I'm putting out the general question, look for some other ideas. And I'll say one last thing. Monica, I haven't seen you since the Bloomingdale Playground. Nice to see you again. Anyway, thank you, guys.
Thank you, Bob. So Pamela Manas, who looks not like a Pamela at all.
There she is.
How are you?
Hi, thank you for allowing us to speak. I'm John, I'm Pam's husband. As I look at the screen here, we look at the screen, you are our angels. Pam was the victim of a pretty horrific hit, a moped accident. The guy was on the sidewalk, in the crosswalk, and hit her head on. And I literally, for the second time in my life, because she had had a brain tumor prior to that, I thought I was holding my dead wife. At the scene came police officers. I restrained I call him assailant because it was completely illegal. Everything that you all are speaking about is dead on money. And I restrained this assailant. Other great good Samaritans like yourselves came to the scene to our aid. The police finally arrived. I was relieved, thinking that they were handling it. The way they handled it was basically not even giving him a ticket, but ruling it an accident. He was set free. Absolutely no consequences whatsoever, like you are describing. My wife here has suffered a traumatic brain injury and is hemi-paralyzed on her right side. I'm lucky that she's alive.
I'm great sitting down.
She's good sitting down, but we are here to help in any way. Brian Lehrer had us on his program with Udonis Rodriguez, which proves to be completely useless. He exclaimed on the program that there will be consequences for drivers who are operating their vehicles illegally, and if they are involved in an accident. We have not seen any of that. So those of you who spoke to the fact anything really being accomplished by consequences being realized, served, and enforced, we fully agree with that. So far, nothing has been happening. It's painful. Our lives have totally changed. I don't know if any of you have read this in the West Side Rag, but it was laid out pretty clearly in that article. But we're all suffering through this. And as someone said earlier, it's not even if you're hit. It is literally walking out on those streets, having an elevated level of cortisol in our system because we are in fear. And
right, whether you're disabled like I am or not disabled, we risk our lives. We all are risking our lives every time we even open our door. We live on 72nd Street, and when we open our door, there could easily be a bicycle just shooting past us. And we have, like most of you have said, tried to yell at them or ask them nicely to stop and get off their bikes, but they don't.
I agree with those of you who said the real solution are heavy consequences. And in terms of the case with Pam, it was a crime. I just don't understand. It's incredulous to me why this man was not indicted or charged with the crime of, if not riding on the sidewalk in the crosswalk, but reckless endangerment for nearly killing my wife or paralyzing her, giving her a traumatic brain injury. It is as serious as you all are making it out to be. You are our angels, and we're really grateful that you let us have a voice here today. And if there's anything we can do, please let us know. Thank you so much.
Thank you, and we are so sorry about that. This is horrible.
Lori is next.
Yeah, Lori Lewis.
Hi, how are you? I'm sorry there's no photo. I'm grateful there's no photo. I just want to say I'm so moved by Pamela's story, and it's much more devastating than my own. But just to parrot everything everyone has said, my story started many years ago, before even e-bikes occurred. 19th Street, 18th Street, and 5th Avenue, I got out of my car and opened the door and closed the door, walked out of the car, and a bicyclist, not an e-bike even, went the wrong way up 18th Street, up 5th Avenue, knocked me over. I was grateful my head didn't hit the sidewalk and a car didn't hit my head, but I was knocked over. The police came, ambulance came. I've been in physical therapy ever since because my back, which was already compromised, has been considerably compromised more since that episode. This is a devastating situation. I have a puppy who every time I walk out the door, I am terrified that I will have to have an argument, pull her away, deal with some kind of crisis or a confrontation with a bicyclist, a scooter, something on the sidewalk up the wrong way. It is unbelievable what we're dealing with, and I appreciate everything everyone's doing. Anything I can do to help. All I could say is I'm a victim. I'm grateful that I'm not a victim that has a situation that has seemingly permanently impaired me, but I do have to deal with the repercussions of a bicycle incident. And this is a serious issue and one that all of these people, I appreciate Donnelly bringing me on board because it is something that we all have to deal with every day of our lives, every walk outside our doors. Thank you.
Okay, Lori. Sorry for that. Susan Wallet. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, okay. So I apologize. I came in late and I think what I heard, I have no sad story about me, but it seemed to me that somebody was suggesting that there be some kind of barriers to keep bicycles off the sidewalk. And that I live in, many of you might be familiar, I live in Penn South, home of the walker. People with walkers cannot get around barriers. You cannot create a barrier to a sidewalk. And that's basically what I wanted to say. If I got that wrong, that was what was being suggested, it's well-meaning, but it can't be done, at least not anywhere in Chelsea. And in other parts of the city, I think it would be, as less frequent, but there are people with walkers and would find it difficult to go around any kind of barrier. So
thank you, Susan.
That's it.
And we want to turn to Danielle Mendes, who is the executive director of the Midtown Court. And we wanted to hear, we talked to Danielle because they have some very interesting program where instead of putting people in jail or, giving them enormous fine, they are really brought to the court and put in a program that educates them and try to correct the issues. And so, Danielle, you may want to talk a little bit about the Midtown Court.
Sure. Thank you, Christine. Thanks so much for having me. As Christine said, I'm the project director of Midtown Community Court, which has been around for 30 years in the Midtown community. And the goal at the outset was to address low-level crimes in the Midtown area in a more restorative and productive way. And so that's looked a lot of different ways over 30 years, as you might imagine. We've changed along with the needs of the community and the times that we're in. We're part of a larger organization called the Center for Justice Innovation that has projects all over the city and beyond the city, and has a number of different innovative types of programs to deal with different situations. And we don't have the driver accountability program that Christine mentioned right now at Midtown, but it is a curriculum that has been developed by our larger organization that exists at some of our sister sites. So for example, the Red Hook Community Justice Center in Brooklyn. And it's something that we're happy to explore and to see if it could be a thing that would make sense in this context to adapt to this kind of situation. Of course, we, in order for somebody to be directed to a mandated program like ours, they would have to get a summons and be required to show up at court. So it would require significant partnership to make something like that happen. So I don't want to suggest that we can do that in a vacuum or turn that around tomorrow, but it is certainly something that we could explore.
Anybody has any question for Danielle? Danielle, thank you so much for staying late and briefing us. This is really helpful to see, all the parts of the community coming together and putting their heads trying to resolve this complicated, very complicated problem. and get out from behind. Okay, so board members, that is a difficult thing to do. I don't know. I think I'm going to read you some. I mean, I don't think we can have like an overall support. Oh, okay. People have already their hands up, so let's do that. David Warren first.
Hi, thank you all again. So, I mean, I'm a cyclist and I'm also a pedestrian, obviously, so it's outrageous. It's an obvious that cyclists riding on the sidewalk. So what I did was I researched what could be done with the infrastructure to prevent cyclists from going on the sidewalk. And the only thing that I read was that, okay, just change the infrastructure to make the infrastructure different so there's more bike lanes, all that. That's not going to solve the solution of what we're talking about tonight. But there is something with the, Christine will know about this in Czech Dads. They came up with putting bicycle corrals in strategic places that would radically lessen the cyclists, the delivery people, from riding on the sidewalks. So that's one possible solution. It's not an end-all be-all. Also, Christopher LeBron and Brian Weber came up with ideas of having the apps with the delivery people and the city by people control a self-enforcement mechanism. For example, the bikes will stop if you ride over the Brooklyn Bridge or the Manhattan Bridge. They stop it. They can do the same if you're riding the wrong way. They can penalize you. So I think a multiple of solutions other than draconian enforcement we should try. And that's what I would propose. Christina, hopefully you'll be able to fine tune the specifics of what I said regarding the bike corrals and the other stuff. And once again, as a cyclist, I'm even more outraged when cyclists do something wrong, because it's a bad reflection, and we really definitely need to improve the infrastructure. That's an obvious. But in the interim, these might be a great solution for us to mitigate the problem. And everyone who spent time here tonight took their time out. I really appreciate it. And thank you for coming.
Jesse.
I just want to first just thank everyone for participating in this. I just want to speak on how we as a committee could maybe approach this and use our time wisely here. You know, I think there were so many ideas discussed tonight, and I'm sort of just parroting what David just said, but there were so many ideas that were discussed tonight. Most of them I thought had merit, some less so, but I really thought that there were a lot of options that were presented for what is clearly a problem for residents of our community. And, you know, I think we as a committee should really be, you know, I do think there's been a lack of legislative action on this. You know, and again, we've all been discussed, but legislation requiring certain improvements in technology, fines for the actual delivery companies rather than, you know, the people there. I mean, there's a number of different things, but would require some legislative requirements, because increasing, you know, summonses, adding patrols in terms of police and stings. Maybe that's less legislative and more executive. But I just think, you know, we need to, as a committee, just present to let people know that there are good options out there, and to maybe make a bullet point list of what they are, and and encourage our electeds to start picking from them or start researching them more fully. I really do, Danielle, I just want to say I'm so glad that you arrived. I think that that's actually an excellent idea, is to have summonses start being issued, and to create a program with you. I was actually at Red Hook Justice Center this morning representing some housing clients, and, you know, it's such a well-run court, more well-run than a lot of our other city courts. So to the extent that we could have people brought there, I think that would be wonderful. But my point is just for our own time, rather than for us to all go around and say, I like this idea, I don't like this idea, I don't, it's going to take, I think, a draft going around our committee, listing all the different bullet points, all the different ideas we heard. And I think our final letter should probably look something like that, proposing solutions, rather than advocating for a specific solution, proposing solutions. That's all I'm saying. Thanks.
Brett?
Okay, yeah, thanks. I'm gonna try to do this pretty quick. I think just the sheer number of people that are coming and speaking on this, I mean, this is just sort of a public forum where I think, again, we all agree that enforcement is not very good. What we don't have are some of the facts and figures, the data. I think every time, Christine, you bring up some kind of number that says how many tickets were issued to for bicycle infractions, it's always like, oh, may as well just not do any, because it's whereas if anybody would stand at our nearest intersection and could have a nickel for every time you saw a bicyclist breaking a law, you'd probably get at least what, $6 an hour, 9, 20, I don't know. It's so we know that there's a lot of there's a tremendous lack of enforcement. There are a lot of things that were suggested tonight. I think we can probably quadruple that list if we put our heads together. I'm not sure how we put our arms around this. I'm not sure how much a letter does other than make a record of how much support there is for things like more enforcement. But it's this is democracy. We vote. We got to put pressure on the elected officials to draft the legislation to get the funding for enforcement officers, short of deputizing all of us community board members to go out there and write our own tickets. We all know what the problems are. We've all made so many suggestions over the many years that we've seen each other's familiar faces in these meetings. It's depressing when we think about it. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't stop. We shouldn't continue. I think it's great that there's a coalition. So I think I would want to encourage all the people that are putting together a coalition and reaching out. Having our local community court here is great. They do fantastic work. Getting the people who do the deliveries on the side of let's try to make things safer is good. So I think maybe we do try to get together a list of all of the potential solutions and get that in a resolution. I don't know how quickly we can do that because the list literally would be dozens and dozens of suggestions long by the time we stop thinking about it. And not all of them are great, but some of them are fantastic. I don't know.
Okay, Brett. David?
Yeah, I mean, I really, I realize that there's a lot of frustrated people out there with this issue, and I'm certainly one of them as well. I'm a bicyclist, and I have I have a list of bullets, and there've been a lot of good ideas, and I think we should put together a bullet list that we put into this. But I wanted to sort of make sure that this issue is not just constrained, not just limited to bicyclists on sidewalks. There's no question that bicyclists on sidewalks are a problem. We all agree they shouldn't be there. We all agree it's a problem. No question about it. But the problem is obviously much bigger than that. I mean, as a bicyclist, I can just say to you, non-bicyclists or occasional bicyclists, that I am just as fearful as a bicyclist as you are as a pedestrian. And I hope that you can come to understand that. I've been a bicycle commuter for 60 years, and this is the most fearful time of my life that I've been doing it. And just in the last couple of years, I've been doing it in New York for 13 years. And I did it in the 80s actually as well in New York. So it's chaos out there. There's no question about it. And it's dangerous for bicyclists just as it is dangerous for pedestrians. And we need, and so this set of bullet points that we can hopefully put together and help solve this problem should be addressing all of us, not just pedestrians on sidewalks. And I think it will. I mean, I think the solutions are the same, for both problems. They really are. And by the way, just as an anecdote, someone in my building just a couple of days ago came in a wheelchair. She was on a city bike. A pedestrian jumped out, knocked her over, and she broke her leg. So obviously that's not common that pedestrians are endangering bicyclists, but you have to think about all the possible permutations, and they're all out there because of the chaos on our public rights of way. So, I also don't, enforcement is I wish enforcement was the answer, but we've been singing that siren song for longer than I can remember, and it isn't working. And I don't think we can rely on the NYPD to solve this problem. Sure, it'll be one of our bullet points, but it just isn't. I'm not even sure we can rely on the DOT. Christine will remember when the speed limit was reduced from 30 to 25 miles per hour. One of the questions that we had in a meeting when DOT was presenting was, have you changed the signal timing on the avenues from 30 to 25 commensurate with the new speed limit? And the answer was no, right? And they said no because, well, we don't want to restrict traffic, right? Well, then what's the change in the, so we couldn't, that was the one place, we know the police aren't going to give tickets to cars that are going over 25, but we had hoped that signal timing would at least be a way of mechanically doing some enforcement. And even that was a hard sell. I think they have finally changed the signal timing. I'm not sure of that, but I think they have. But my point is, we do need to come up with non-NYPD solutions. And there have been a number of them put out tonight, which were quite good. I think that's where this letter should go. If we're going to produce a letter, and it should be addressing all of the issues created by illegal bicycle behavior, not just, not only against, certainly including, but not only against pedestrians.
Okay, Charles?
I agree a lot of what other committee members have said. I think David put it really well in terms of this being a holistic problem on our streets. I went out and got a city bike this afternoon and biked up and down 8th Avenue for a half hour just to sort of refresh my memory of all the chaos. And the first thing I saw on 51st and 9th was a car crash. And when I biked by a little later, there was an ambulance. And that was 2 motor vehicles. We've had, 2,860 deaths from January 2012 to January 2023 on our streets in the city. 7 of them have been caused by bicycles. That's 0.2%. Obviously, that doesn't account for people who've been injured and paralyzed by bicycle accidents. And I don't mean to minimize the fact that people are scared of bikes and that people have been hurt by bikes and people have been hurt on bikes. But we have a traffic carnage problem in our city, and I think this committee should take a holistic approach. There was some talk of, speed limiting of e-bikes, and frankly, I think we have class 1, class 2, and class 3 e-bikes. The class 3 is the fastest they can. 25 miles an hour is the fastest they can go. Anything above that is already illegal. I would love to talk about speed limiting cars. If our speed limit is 25 miles an hour and all of our cars have, thousands of silicon chips in them now and GPS, then let's speed limit our cars as well. I think that we should be approaching this holistically. I really appreciate that a lot of our neighbors have gotten together and feel passionately about this and have spent their time and their evening speaking to us about it. And I think there were a lot of good points made. I very much agree with what Jesse said, which is that probably at 9:05 p.m., we're not going to be able to come up with all the bullet points that we can all agree on tonight, and that it'd be a long process. But I think that there probably are a lot of things that this committee can agree on. And a lot of the ideas I think presented by people from this coalition are things that we can support. Frankly, to me, it felt like some members of the committee were suggesting that bike lanes themselves should not exist, and that perhaps it was better in the 80s when bikes rode with cars. I don't support that. I don't support having to have licenses and license plates for every single type of bike. I think we need to be encouraging cycling. I think we need to encouraging getting people out of cars, less congestion, cleaner air, all the benefits that this committee knows. I don't know that I want to blanket support every idea put forward by this the coalition, but I do think there were a lot of good ideas and we should discuss them, and I look forward to doing so with the committee.
Aaron.
Okay, a very quick point. Christine, this is more of a question actually, not a note, but is there any way we can actually bring some of the city agencies to speak with us? Because, I mean, this is a very heavily invested infrastructure citywide. DOT does its job when it comes to other forms of traffic. Why don't we ask them to come and speak to us and then come up with a plan for citywide sort of approach to this? Because it's not going to be solved by this committee or this particular community board, but it's the agencies that actually are sort of equipped to work through the plans and find for us.
That's a good question. I mean, Jackie is here from DOT. Generally, I mean, either we are talking about education and we could have a discussion with DOT saying, how do you do the education of the bicyclists, right? But then when we get to the enforcement, they say, it's not us, it's NYPD, right? And then we get into this whole discussion about, we don't have anybody and we don't want to do it anyway, which is really a challenge. So I think the idea of writing a letter that elevate the issue to our elected official and say,
I'm totally sorry.
You need to get involved here, because we can make a list of suggestions, but then who is going to do it, who is going to enforce, who is going to do blah, 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 is really, I think our elected officials are perceived that whatever they do, which is not totally pro-bike, is a, liability, political liability. And we need to start to explore the fact that you can be balanced and it's not all black and white, and there are different issues here.
I'm totally in agreement with that. What I'm saying is that along with that, we should also write maybe a second letter and then request a citywide agency. I'm not just saying DOT, there might be other agencies involved as much. So something to that effect that we can work on both fronts.
Okay. All right, Jesse?
Sorry to speak again, but I just want to write a suggestion, or first just to say I'm probably not comfortable with what the group came here to ask tonight, which is just like a blanket letter saying we generally support enforcement, we generally support. I would like to be more specific than that, and also I do think just raising the issue for the electeds is probably just passing the buck at this point for an issue no one wants to actually touch, and it's kind of this committee and this board is known for proposing solutions. And I don't think, again, we don't necessarily have to advocate for those, but as a committee, I think how we can move ahead is if we, whoever's drafting the letter, we each take a week to submit a couple of the ideas that we like the most.
Yeah.
And see what it looks like in a week, and then talk about it from there, or a week. Talk about
I agree with you, Jesse. I was not saying that way. I was saying that in the sense of, if we want the agencies to be involved, we're going to need to turn on the fire under the, and we can make that. So Brett, and then I will try to kind of summarize.
Okay, yeah, just a thought, Christine, just I don't know, making it a suggestion, but I mean, just given the vast number of items and the number of bullet points that can come in, it seems like this could very easily get extremely unfocused. Would it make sense to try to find a few people to kind of corral these together, sort of as a mini task force within the committee, just to
anybody who is ready to work on it, raise your hand, and I may have some ideas. I mean, one thing is I think we need to structure it into different categories, right? Like somebody talked about information, some people talked about infrastructure, and then we have this whole issue of, incentives and who is do we have education, do we have etc. And so I think if we regroup them into those categories, we're going to find that there is a lot of overlap, and we can select that. The thing that, and I can draft that with a subgroup. I'd be happy to get some help on that. I think the thing I would like to take a vote on tonight is the issues of registration, registration and then enforcement, because I know that people have very different positions on that. And we have heard a lot of people talk about the enforcement. Is it something that we think should be strongly in our letter? And you can show me a consensus. I mean, I just don't want to be going in one direction and everybody says, no, this is not what we want to do. So the big first subject, which has always been an issue with everybody, is the registration. Do we want the cyclists to have a registration and permit? And I'd like to hear.
Bike or e-bike, there's different categories. There could be different categories, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm happy to hear about that, but that's one chunk that need to be discussed, right? And then there is another chunk, which is the enforcement. How much enforcement versus other activities, etc. So can you kind of talk about those two things? I mean, talk to me about that, so that we know in what direction we're going. I mean, we can make it a little soft in one way, or Viren.
Yeah, and registration is actually driven by the international law and also the state law. So I think it's a very specific conversation. And I think personally, if you ask me, yes, there should be a requirement for registration and licensing, and where you're allowed to drive as much. So e-bikes, riding with regular bikes is very dangerous. And I personally have been hit by an e-bike coming from behind me, not even from front of me. So I'm totally for it. I just don't know what would the mechanism be, but it will have to be tied into who do we speak with? Do we speak with state, DMV, or do we speak with the city?
But right now we're not speaking with anybody, but we need to first align on the concept, right? So the first alignment is on the concept, and then say, okay, what is it? Charlie, what are you for?
I'm for registration of moped class C, B, and A that I see on DOT's website. I mean, some people call them scooters. I think that's confusing because to me a scooter is something that you stand up on. But these sit down
moped are already
correct.
So this is not in addition to what.
Correct. I don't advocate for anything that is pedaled, that someone is pedaling, whether that's acoustic bike or a class 1, 2, or 3 e-bike. Class 2 being up to 20 miles an hour, and class 3 being up to 25. I don't advocate for any registration or licensing.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not familiar with the classes, which obviously are important, but I mean, I'm in favor of registration for. I think it ought to be a two-pronged. Ideally, it would be two-pronged. It would be no registration for anything with a pedal. Obviously, no registration for anything without a motor, electric or gas, of course. But then things with motors, I would say that what matters is the speed,
right?
Not how they get, not so much how they get there, but the speed. So I would say that you would want to license anything that goes over 10 miles an hour would be the ideal.
I mean, just for reference, city bikes go, I think, 18.
And yeah, and the city bikes, the new electric city bikes are going way too fast.
Yeah,
I mean, and so look, if they have governors on them in some way to limit the speed, to put a speed limit on them, then no registration required. But the speed is what matters. I mean, that's it's not how strong your legs are.
Wait a minute, we need Tina first. Let's go in round.
There are so many nuances here, quite honestly, like the type of bike. I'm sort of a little bit overwhelmed with answering this question right now because, first of all, I think a part of me thinks that some things we're talking about are should be on my wishful list, and some should be on my achievable list. And a part of me says that if I say I want some of these, for example, I want every bike in the city to be registered, I think that's unachievable at this point. But again, there are so many nuances I'm not prepared to say without about it.
Alan.
Yeah, I think something based on speed, of course, and also weight. I'm seeing a lot of bikes with pedals that are probably, I mean, the tires themselves must be 30, 40 pounds each, plus the frame. So I think something that's based on the weight of the vehicle, in addition to some sort of speed cutoff, would be appropriate.
Okay.
So you can throw in a lot of other vehicles into that category.
Jesse.
My suggestion might be that registration comes with use, like how we deal with Ubers and taxis versus just regular cars. If you're a delivery driver using your vehicle for a commercial purpose, you need to have some special registration or license, which then would come with training and et cetera, et cetera. City bike is its own issue. I think technology could be a solution there, but that's how I would think about it.
Gwen. It's still sticky. No, it's still mute. She knows. I'll move to Brett first. Brett?
Yeah, if we're taking suggestions for policy, I'd say for anything that's motorized and capable of going over 20 miles per hour should be something that's registerable. If it's a bicycle, it's not terribly realistic. People borrow bicycles all the time, and it's about the operator, not the machine. And the other policy consideration I think should be considered is if someone wants to be able to pass the ticket along to an employer for delivery purposes, and they would need to register as well. Otherwise, the ticket's on you.
Say that again, the last part.
I think if someone is using a bicycle for business purposes, such as for deliveries or anything that's ticketable would be on them unless they register it with their employer.
Okay. All right, so that gives me a sense of stuff. Viren, you wanted to speak again?
I just wanted to continue with what I started. I think speed is one thing, registration is definitely another thing, but based on speed, where these vehicles run, that is another question that we should think about, because some of the fast moving vehicles should not be in bike lanes, for example.
Yeah.
Right? And they obviously should not be on sidewalks, but they also should be riding with, the rest of the traffic maybe.
Sorry to interrupt that part, but it's right, it's telling right on that. That's also an enforcement issue. Anything that's going over 20 miles per hour already is speeding on a street. So it's whether it's registered or not, 20 miles per hour is the speed limit.
Yeah, I ride my bike along bike paths all the time, and I see scooters and mopeds and e-bikes riding along with me. So it's a very common phenomenon in New York City.
Okay, and then Gwen.
Thank you. The governor's idea sounds the best if you can put them on all the different ones where, types of machines we're talking about here. So I think we ought to explore that. So that's going to be a little learning we have to do too. And also in the Netherlands, they have trams, they have subways, they have bicycles, they have pedestrians, they have everything. And it seems to get along okay with all of it, but there they were designed differently. The streets were, I believe they had to redo a bunch of them after the Second World War. But I think we ought to look at what they've done, just because we might get some good ideas from it.
Okay. All right. So what I propose is what I've heard is that we don't want to make a blanket support. We want to make a list of suggestions, recognize that this is an issue. This is a real issue, which is not going away. And we have a lot of people concerned about it. And we heard a collection of suggestions that ought to be explored. And we encourage our elected officials to, push that as an issue and take that seriously, because that is a serious issue. And then I'll make, with whoever wants to work on that, a list of what I've heard and what is on the video. And you can help, and then that will be the letter. The letter will say we have, this is a real issue, and there are a lot of interconnected issues, and there are a bunch of solutions of ideas. None of them that we're not going to put ideas that we don't support, but also there are a lot of ideas, and all of them are not going to make it, right? Jesse.
I just think because there are so many ideas, Christine, this might not operate like a normal letter, and maybe we should expect that a draft will be put together, and then we will have to discuss it one more time before it goes to full board, just because rather than, I can see you putting out a letter and then like everyone has 1,000 comments of what they like, what they don't like.
Yeah, sure.
And it might be best addressed, with another session.
Yeah, so that would not go to this board, it would go to the following one. Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, well, Danielle, thank you so much, Donnelly and Sally and Richard and Katie. Thank you so much for the presentation, for bringing up to our consciousness, and we will share with you some of the drafts.
Thank you so much. Just to confirm, we're not going to vote on the letter this month. We're going to vote on it next month.
Yes, that's the idea. Is that okay with you, Rich?
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah, no, I want to thank you guys so much for all your work on this committee and for listening to us and taking this so seriously. I know you're all deeply involved in it. I think that this is so complicated and there's so many moving parts to this. I thought that this was going to be a campaign to explore each of these ideas. And so I can't wait to see Christine's letter, because I think it's going to break it down. And when you're faced with something as large and complicated as this, break it down into smaller parts, and let's all work together to find solutions to each of those parts, and that'll move us ahead. I don't think it's a rush. It's really complicated. But thank you guys very much for your time.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the testimony and for bringing it up. And I think I thought it was a very good, the public was very good. You were very good, and everything was helpful. Thank you so much. We have how many more things on the agenda? Oh my God, yes. So I hope all of you have read the DCP proposal for City of Yes. This was in the folder. So essentially the city planning is proposing a whole slew of changes to the zoning in order to facilitate conversion to electricity and conversion to carbon neutral And so you had documents. I attended, they came to the community board and they wanted to come only once. So there was a joint committee of the land use of Hell's Kitchen and land use of Chelsea. And David was there in those, right? And it's fairly extensive. The two things I have essentially highlighted is they are suggesting that what is it called? Let me take my piece of paper, my little cheat sheet here. There are suggestion of two things which are of concern for us. No, not that. Give me a minute. I took some notes. Yeah. So the first concern I have is that they want to allow solar canopies over parking lots, which make a lot of sense, right? So and this is fine. There are two side effects of that. One is if those parking lots are being put together with the idea of building housing on it, and they are now investing more infrastructure on them, it's going to delay the building of housing. And there is a second thing where they are suggesting that no trees could be planted within 10 feet of the, any planting should be removed from 10 feet of the border of the parking lot. And I don't think this is a good idea because that would make it very, very unpleasant for pedestrians to walk on those sidewalks. So these are two concerns I'm going to raise and pass that to the land use people. And then there
Christine, could I, when you're done, could I comment? I wanted to comment on about your first one about the solar panels making it less likely that it'd be developed in housing. Okay. Now or should I wait?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree with you about the tree one, by the way, but I don't agree with you about the other one. I just don't think that's how it's going to work. Parking lots are basically land banks for developers, and adding some, it may seem like some solar panels adds a lot of value to that and makes it less likely. It doesn't. It's just not in the big picture compared with the cost of a 50-story building. It's insignificant. So I don't think, I'm putting on my developer hat now. Right. I don't think a developer would say, oh no, yeah, we're not going to develop that property in housing because it's got solar panels over the parking. I just don't think that's, all right. That's financially realistic.
Yeah, Viren?
Yeah, very quickly, I think the majority of these parking lots are not in our district. They're outside Manhattan. Many of them, and I was also in the meeting and also had a talk with one of the DCP members that I know. They're actually looking for city-owned parking lots, which are going to remain parking lots for a foreseeable future. And they're looking for large parking lots that pretty much can be kind of, And the last thing, Christine, is the cost of moving solar panels is not that tremendous.
Okay, well, that's good news. All right, so we'll remove one of those concerns. And then the next concern I have is about the open to the public EV charging facilities. So they are going to make it very easy, generally, to install EV charging in a portion or the totality of some of the parking lots and parking garage. And I wanted to raise the issue that they should encourage or give incentives to the owners who are taking advantage of these allowances to do level 3 charging and not level 2. Because saying that the level 2 charging is a public charging, it doesn't work. People go into the parking and they have to pay for 8 hours of parking before they can, and that's too expensive. So I think we should recommend that they use level 3 charging along with those incentives. You know, they allow them to put more, but it should be level 3, not level 2.
Agreed.
Across the board. So that's the other big comment I have on this one. Jesse.
Sorry, can I just ask how would that relate? Like, how does it conflict or conform to the letter we already wrote on?
No, that's consistent with it. That's consistent.
Oh, okay. That's what. But I mean, their overall plan I was looking at. I mean, I thought we voted like against public use, or I guess we just voted against using it as like sidewalk space. That's what we voted.
Sidewalk. Here they are talking about parking
Right.
lots and parking buildings, right? So which is exactly what we want. But
Right.
then they are proposing to do level 2, or they are not specifying what. And if everybody does level 2, it's going to be
Right.
useless.
And
Right.
then we should
So
definitely.
I think we need to send a message. Yeah.
Christian, very quickly, that was also explained to me by somebody I'm sorry, having trouble speaking. Somebody who used to be the director of Manhattan Urban Design Unit in DCP. And she explained to me, and I kind of tried to speak of that during the meeting as well to you. The point they're making is that zoning resolution does not specify, cannot specify, because that is something that will be done by other agencies like DOB or whichever agency it might be. And so I don't know if raising that issue with DCP is going to go that far, but we can still raise it. I'm with you.
Well, a lot of the parking, well, DCA regulates the parkings, the public parkings. So DCA could be the one making the requirement.
Right. Which is what they're saying, that the zoning is only saying that all commercial parking, whether it's in residential district or any district,
yes,
should be allowed to provide EV charging stations.
Yes.
Which type they're not specifying.
I know, and I'm concerned about that.
Right, and they have the
right. Tina, what was your point?
No, the point was that,
no, Tina, I was moving to Tina.
I remember them saying that there was a huge cost differential between the two, between the level 2 and the level 3.
Yeah.
Would that impact in any way? In other words, yeah.
Yes, you're probably right. But the point is that they are not allowing a lot of spaces anyway. So if they don't have a lot of spaces, they better be level 3 than level 2, because level 2 is just useless.
Right. Is there any way there could be an incentive? Like, I'm just sort of curious because, of course, that level is preferable, hands down.
Right.
I'm just curious how to help that.
There are two problems, Tina. There are two problems. One is the sort of permit to be able to provide EV charging stations. The second one is what level will determine the electrical permit. And that's another question that comes up, and which is why DCP is unable to specify that, because that falls under DOB. Some buildings may not even be allowed to have level 3 charging stations.
Right. Gwen? Yes.
Sorry. Anyway, I just wanted to say I didn't want to forget something that we mentioned, which was geothermal.
Everybody raised that.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
But we are not the one raising that. The WPE and the others are raising that. It's not a transportation issue. I'm just looking at the transportation section.
Oh, okay.
That. So we wouldn't
I was
be the
at
one.
the meeting.
Yeah. We wouldn't be the one raising that issue. So these are the two, and then there is a lot of space where they say they are going to allow people only 20% to be with chargers. And I don't know why they don't want to allow 100%. It seems bizarre to me. If at the end of the day, you want all your cars to be electric, you should have all your parking be electric, right? It seems to me. So that's the third item that I was going to raise to them.
That makes sense to me. I like that.
Right. So can I get a motion on that so I can pass that on?
Christine, when you say all the spaces be, so you're talking about in all public parking garages?
Yeah.
I mean, I could see that you would want it if it was the parking spaces if they were private parking spaces for an apartment building, you would certainly want 100% because you'd want all the residents. In a public parking garage, you'd mandate 100%.
You don't mandate, it's all allowance.
Oh, allowed. Oh, sure, allowed, of course.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's
you're
like,
right.
why do you give an allowance for only
Sure,
20%?
no, you're right. You're right. For
Right?
if it's an allowable, absolutely.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Okay, so someone give me a motion.
Motion to adopt.
Okay. Second. Everybody?
Second.
All right. So we just have one small thing and we are out of here.
Christine, just to remind, I guess the committee, whatever you're voting on today for the application, the DC application is going to go to exec, and it's going to be, I think there's going to be a full vote on the letter that's going to be written.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And then Pier 94, same thing. You know that we have been writing letters. Pier 94 is now proposed to be leased to Vornado again, even though they have not done anything with that site for 15 years. And so they are proposing to do that. And there are two transportation aspects which are concerning. One is that if Pier 92 is developed again, they want to have Pier 94 and Vornado want the right to negotiate a deal to take over the parking and to develop more parking, which we don't think makes sense because the more parking we have, the more people we have crossing the Greenway, right? So that shouldn't be permitted. And then the second thing is that they are not proposing to do, they are not, how do I can't find my word. They are not compelled by the lease to do the fixes to the Greenway that we have been waiting for now 10 years. And we think that they should be compelled to do it in the first 2 years of the contract of the lease. So these are suggestions that I will make, and Jeffrey is writing the letter to say, why are you doing that, Alan?
Besides the Greenway, were there other issues that they were supposed to do that they haven't done all this time? It wasn't clear from the letters.
Plenty. What they have done is they have not used the site, period. So
Right.
none of the things they had discussed.
Right. So in order for it to be used in the future, the pier is going to have to get fixed up. Not the structure of the pier. I think that's the
The
city's
structure is
obligation.
going to be fixed by the city.
That's the city, but there are other issues I think that came up in our letters that we expected them to do, which haven't been done, which now the city's going to do, which means the citizens of the city are going to wind up paying for what? So that's something that should,
Jeffrey is writing all that stuff. He's very revved up on that.
Okay, all right, I'll leave it to
I am revved up too, but I mean, this is ridiculous, right? This is now the city is doing everything, and Vornado is getting the thing for no money, right? And they are not committed to do any of the things. I mean, at least from a transportation standpoint, any of the items that they had committed, which is pretty shocking, really. Viren.
Yeah, just very quickly, Christine, just a related topic. No parking across the Greenway in our district. Is that a position the board can take, potentially?
Well, that's what we have tried. We have tried to take that by limiting the uses on the piers so that.
That's what I meant.
Right. But we have done that in the past, yes.
Right. But can we make a sort of district-wide sort of position that all parking that's already there, we can't do much about it, but no new parking on the other side of the highway?
It's very difficult to make that statement because when they build something, right, they need trucks, they need deliveries, they need, all those things. So
I'm with that. I'm saying no, I'm not saying no traffic. I'm saying no parking.
right. I think that's something I will suggest to Jeffrey.
So you're leaving this.
Alice? No, that's it. Okay, so these are the two major things I have on that lease, which the chances of us changing that lease are like close to zero, but just for the sake of it. So I would like to have a motion on that.
I make the motion.
Okay. All in favor? Yes.
Aye.
Alice, Pete, everybody. Okay.
Aye. Yes.
Anybody opposed? No. Okay. Good job. We survived this. This was a big deal. I think it went really well, right?
Really well and really long.
Yeah, the people were just very, very good. Nobody was really.
They were.
With 100 participants, you did really well.
No, we did. Right.
And we didn't have Dale, our usual enforcer of time.
Right. We're good. Okay. Well, have a good night. Thank you so much.
Same.
I will do a draft, and I don't know who is going to be the group doing the draft.
I mean, I'm happy to be a part of that, putting together the bullets.
Darren, Jesse.
I will
I can be a
too.
part of it too. I can be a part
Oh,
of it.
everybody wants to be.
Christine.
I think we all want to offer input.
Christine, Jesse can, Janine can provide us with the transcripts. That might make it easier.
Provide what?
The Zoom session is being recorded, so there would be transcripts.
Yeah, it's going to be posted. Yeah, it will be on YouTube.
No. There's going to be a verbal transcript that is produced.
Oh yeah, I like to read the thing. I'm
Yeah.
just okay. Okay, thank you so much, and good night.
Good night,
Good
all.
night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you for a great meeting.